Kang Jioma looks painfully ordinary. That is impressive, considering he reincarnated inside his favorite game. Now he is facing Joaquin Academy's entrance exam. The other applicants have money to burn, while Jioma is completely broke. His first stop is weapon registration, where discount sashimi knives land on the counter. The instructor assumes some rich brat is pulling a joke. Jioma calmly insists those are his swords. He cannot afford academy gear, let alone the tuition. Then the instructor spots the green special admission badge. Jioma passed an exam reserved for students from ordinary families. That revelation crushes the instructor's pride so hard, the man nearly cries. The wealthy students offer less sympathy and much more contempt. A broke commoner got special admission, so they start complaining about the smell. Jioma hears every insult and barely gives them a glance. His last life never gave him peace. This time, he plans to protect it at any cost. He is young, handsome, and blessed with a power that sounds legendary. Unfortunately, it only works with blades shorter than 30 centimeters. That is less divine gift, more extremely specific workplace restriction. Jioma tests the blessing with one of his knives. Power erupts through the blade, and lightning tears across his entire body. The recoil is so vicious that he immediately swears off using it again. Maybe the first activation was just unusually bad. He grabs the knife again, hoping for a better result. The blessing answers with the exact same agony. Nearby, the academy gathers every new student for the class ranking ceremony. The young prodigies assemble beneath one of the legendary 7 stars. Siegfried von Nibelung is the Blade Emperor and disciple of Joaquin Academy's founder. Every student knows his legend, but Siegfried looks thoroughly unimpressed by theirs. Even another 7 stars hero cannot cure his boredom, though Medea Poison arrives looking remarkably young. Her figure is almost more legendary than her 7 stars title. Siegfried mocks her youthful style, and Medea takes it as a compliment. She says her blessing could shave 10 years off his appearance. He refuses, insisting old people should look their age. Medea claims her face matches the youth still packed into her essence. She still accepts his invitation to watch the academy's first day. She once hated these people, but his granddaughter makes the visit worthwhile. Below them, the students look like a rainbow financed by aristocratic money. Jioma's black hair makes him the easiest commoner to spot. Naturally, the noble jokes keep coming. Then a blue-haired girl enters, and every insult dies mid-sentence. The boys turn red before she even looks their way. She is Abel von Nibelung, granddaughter of the Blade Emperor. She is also the game's main heroine, which makes Jioma immediately wary. Siegfried sends everyone forward, and the placement exam begins. An ancient hero built the academy's subspace for battles like this. Inside it, injuries feel real, while every student's body remains safe outside. That safety net permits any fighting style, including lethal attacks. Medea explains the academy tradition: survive longer, rank higher. The two heroes are far more interested in the mysterious special entrant. The students, meanwhile, crowd around Abel and her absurdly special status. Jioma could join the pack chasing her. Instead, he remembers exactly what Abel's miraculous blessing can do. While everyone else follows their instincts, he heads in the opposite direction. He even reads a book about enjoying a peaceful life in this world. He also remembers that fighting here will force him to use that awful blessing. So, honestly, surrendering sounds like the better option. When the announcement says everyone will be sent into the subspace, the students get excited. Jioma is the only exception. Once the transfer happens, though, he steels himself. 7 minutes later, several students are sent back. The thought of how they were eliminated leaves everyone shaken. Medea watches the results and announces that Abel took first place. Given her bloodline, that result is hardly surprising. Medea is thrilled to see Siegfried's granddaughter perform. Siegfried does not see it the same way. Abel did not break the academy record, which has belonged to the Siegfrieds for generations. The old man is about to leave when an overwhelming sensation suddenly hits him. It feels almost like a sharp pain in his stomach. Everyone feels it. The students look up at the sky in fear. Medea asks Siegfried whether he knows what is happening. Even the great hero has no idea, but they keep watching the sky. Then the sky begins to crack. It is unbelievable. 2 people fall from above and slam into the ground. The silence in the arena becomes deafening. Medea orders the medical team to check on the students. But a few minutes earlier, those 2 brothers had not been fighting each other. They had been beating everyone else senseless. Because of them, the match was practically decided from the beginning. This was not a battle royale. It was a death match, and Jioma knows exactly who was responsible. The evil twins are Mao Jun and Shun Mao, 2 naturally gifted experts in brutal violence. For the last 30 minutes, they have been deliberately tormenting the weaker students and enjoying every second of it. Jioma looks so weak that they do not even notice him. Eventually, all their playthings are gone, leaving the brothers bored and searching for their next target. Only one frightened girl remains. They point at her with clearly terrible intentions, and Jioma cannot stay quiet anymore. Shun Mao walks toward the terrified girl and tells her she is exactly his type. That is the final straw. Jioma shouts from the back of the arena and grabs the twins' attention. He steps in without thinking, and now the boys who never even noticed him are staring straight at him. They see the color of his nameplate and laugh at him for being a worthless special entrant. They decide to finish him quickly so they can get back to the girl. Jioma faces them head-on while calculating what to do. His painless blessing lasts only 30 seconds. That is nowhere near enough time against these 2. He has one option left, and the answer is inside his bag: sashimi knives. If he uses a sword, the blade god's blessing will activate and bring that unbearable pain back. Gioma wanted a safe, quiet life, and half a day has not even passed. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a knife. The brothers burst out laughing. Shunmao decides to stop wasting time and charges in to take Gioma out. This is not the moment to be picky, but Gioma has a desperate plan. He will activate the painless blessing for 30 seconds and use it to cancel the pain from the sword blessing. All he has to do is wait. Gioma activates painlessness right before drawing the sashimi knife. Once again, the blade god's blessing flares to life as Shunmao drops in with a vicious smile. There is only one way for Gioma to survive. If he cannot break through this situation, he will die. But can a sashimi knife really cut a person? Gioma remembers asking his old master, a former gangster, why gangsters always use them in movies. His master said it was just movie nonsense. You cannot slice a person like a fish, even if a god came down and tried. But the blessing is clear. If Gioma wants to cut someone, then it can cut someone. Trusting his master's blessing, Gioma drives the knife toward the large man leaping at him. In the next instant, Shun Mao is cut cleanly in half. The students and his remaining brother, Mao Jun, stare in absolute shock. This quiet, gloomy kid has done the impossible with a simple kitchen knife. Shun Mao's body falls to the ground in 2 pieces. His brother screams, then desperately reminds himself that this is the subspace, and Shun Mao is not truly dead. That does not change what he just saw. Mao Jun tells himself that his brother was careless. Now, as the surviving twin, he has to pick up the slack. He looks at his brother's fallen body and claims the challenge for himself. With the gauntlets equipped on both hands, their true power awakens. Mao Jun's defense is reinforced. His jumping ability rises by 200%, and his fists hit like trucks. He is confident that not even an S-rank weapon could break through his defense now. Gioma is not impressed. He is focused entirely on the countdown, tracking the seconds before his blessing ends. Mao Jun spots an opening and lunges forward with a crushing punch while Gioma is distracted. Then, in a single moment, everything is over. Mao Jun hits the ground, covered in blood and barely alive. The countdown keeps running. The moment it hits 0, painlessness ends, and the blade god's full agony crashes into Gioma all at once. He screams, still clutching the knife, and finally collapses. Later, Gioma wakes up in a white room that looks like a clinic. Before he can even sit up, 2 people walk in. He has never met them, but he knows exactly who they are. 2 legendary 7 stars heroes, the strongest man alive, Siegfried von Nibelung, and the Academy's director, Medea Poison. Gioma cannot imagine why 2 of the world's most powerful people came to see him. Medea asks his name, but Siegfried gets straight to the point, one hand resting tensely on his sword. He demands to know what Gioma did during the battle. Siegfried explains that both he and Medea felt the overwhelming force that clearly came from Gioma. The hostility in the room is so thick, it could be cut with a knife. Realizing he is being questioned by the strongest man alive, Gioma makes the smart move. He apologizes first, admits his actions went too far, and says he is ready to accept any punishment. As the 2 heroes glare at each other, Medea has to step between them before a fight breaks out. She tells Siegfried to stop terrifying the boy, then reveals something shocking. While Gioma was unconscious, Siegfried had already cleared his blocked meridian points. Gioma cannot believe the Sword Emperor did that for him. Now that it is done though, his body definitely feels much lighter. Medea explains that they reviewed the footage and concluded Gioma was only defending a student in trouble. She cannot help drooling a little, as she calls him the handsome prince she has always dreamed of. This forces Siegfried to back away. The important part, she says, is that she will not give him any trouble over his actions. The twins already had a terrible reputation anyway. After what Gioma did, both of them decide to withdraw from the academy. That is a huge relief. But that is not all. Their real reason for visiting is to congratulate Gioma. He ranked first among every new student in the school. So Gioma's dream of a safe, peaceful life officially becomes impossible. Later, back in Medea's office, the 2 heroes regroup. She complains that she has never seen anything like this in her 2 decades as academy director. One student ranked first among all the new applicants. They rejected an invitation to join the school's top class, the star class. They tried to make him reconsider, but Gioma refuses to change his mind. Medea asks Siegfried whether he is upset that Gioma ranked above his granddaughter. After all, he saw the footage and knows what Gioma can do. Siegfried disagrees. He thinks Gioma is nothing more than an immature child challenging the system. The subspace carries the will of the Academy's founding hero. If it recognized Gioma as number 1, then the Academy itself chose him as its top student. That result will not change. Siegfried has his own thoughts about Gioma too. He sees him as a complete anomaly. If Gioma had exceptional technique, incredible physical ability, or even a little experience, the result would make sense. But Siegfried can tell that Gioma has none of those things. And yet, after watching the footage again, he sees something extraordinary in the way Gioma moves. It is the final form of swordsmanship, the very thing Siegfried has spent his entire life pursuing. When he opened Gioma's meridian points, he felt how weak the boy's body was. Gioma had done no physical training at all. Something seems to be stored inside him though, and even the strongest human alive cannot understand what it is. That is why Siegfried feels an unbelievable sense of rivalry towards someone the same age as his granddaughter. Medea, on the other hand, is more focused on the fact that Gioma is ridiculously attractive. She is still love-struck because he revealed those skills while saving a woman in danger. She jokes that if she were only 10 years younger, she would definitely chase after him. Lost in that thought, Medea stays quiet until Siegfried asks what is on her mind. She refuses to answer, then asks what she thinks students call women like her. The director is curious and tells him to continue. His answer is definitely not what she wants to hear. Medea explodes with rage. Meanwhile, Gioma heads to his first class. He rejected Star class. The academy drops him as low as it can without making the adults throw a tantrum. Wolf class. Gioma originally wanted Tiger class, but Medea practically begs him to choose Wolf class instead. In exchange, she promises to keep his #1 ranking a secret. He had wanted to finish school safely in a lower class, instead of fighting his way through a stronger one. Wolf class is a little more advanced than he expected, but it is still manageable. Gioma pushes through the large doors and enters his new classroom. For a moment, the students look at him with mild curiosity. Then they notice he is a special entrant, and suddenly nobody cares very much. Gioma does not mind. Their indifference means Medea kept her side of the deal. Now all he has to do is live the quiet life he always wanted. He settles at his desk while a familiar student nervously approaches. She is flustered and thanks him for helping her earlier, but Gioma has no idea who she is. She explains that she is the girl he saved during the exam. Gioma brushes it off and tells her she does not need to thank him. Anyone else would have done the same thing. It may look like he saved her, but Gioma feels that he was really saving himself. Accepting her gratitude would make him feel like a hypocrite. He changes the subject by introducing himself instead. The girl follows his lead and reveals that her name is Chloe. It is an interesting coincidence that they ended up in the same class. The introductions are over. Gioma tries to remember whether he ever heard of a character named Chloe in the game. Maybe she was introduced after he stopped playing, but that makes no sense. When he quit, the game's main story had already reached the point where adding a new character would be pointless. It seems he has encountered someone just as extra as he is. Gioma asks Chloe to keep the exam incident secret. He does not want rumors about his strength, spreading and destroying his safe, easy lifestyle. Chloe agrees, but then starts making a request of her own. Before she can finish, the homeroom teacher bursts into the room with a loud shout. Gioma tells her to return to her seat so they can talk later. The teacher introduces himself as Lee Wanbin and welcomes the new faces of Wolf class. Since it is their first day, he starts with basic physical training. That means 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. Then they run 10 laps around the training grounds. For noble geniuses who have trained hard their entire lives, this is easy. For Gioma, it is a training routine that will absolutely make him go bald. He nervously walks up to the teacher after everyone leaves. He admits that he is not strong enough for the workout. Surprisingly, the teacher not only knows his name, but seems to respect Gioma immensely. Medea clearly did not keep his identity completely secret. Lee Wanbin also knows that Gioma is allowed to take classes at any level he wants. Gioma turns down the chance to join Star class. He tells the teacher that, for now, he just wants to use the bathroom. That is how Gioma ends up joining the boring workout with the rest of his classmates. They all pass Gioma with ease while he struggles to keep up. He already feels like he is about to faint. Chloe runs beside him and notices that he does not look well. Then she casually tells him that she is already on her 9th lap. She gives him a little encouragement, then speeds up to finish the final lap. By the end of the day, Gioma returns to his dorm and drinks several bottles of water. He has only been at the academy for a week. He has already run into one unexpected problem after another. After the brutal training, he rushes to the cafeteria and discovers that the meals are not free. When he sees the price of spicy pork rice, he freezes in shock. Just remembering the price makes him throw his bottle against the wall in blind rage. His living expenses are almost gone, and he deeply regrets refusing the money his father tried to give him. For the last few days, he has survived on nothing but the cheapest water from the campus store. He even misses the free dinners from his army days. For now, all he can do is think about something else and forget his hunger. The first thing that comes to mind is his blessing. As usual, the status screen appears and gives him the details. A lot more time has passed since the last check. His physical level rises and upgrades the Blade God's blessing. He can now activate it with slightly longer blades. He checks himself in the mirror and can definitely see the physical progress. Maybe it is because the Sword Emperor activated his pressure points. His body feels like it has evolved. Still, the Blade God's blessing has not expanded beyond sashimi knife length. If he keeps improving, maybe one day he will be able to use a small sword. His hands even start itching whenever he is not holding a blade. That is probably another side effect of the blessing. Someone knocks on the door. Gioma opens it and finds Chloe standing outside. She asks whether she is interrupting him, and he asks why she came. She did not see him in the cafeteria and came to make sure he was okay. Gioma lies and says he normally does not eat food made by other people. His inner self is practically drooling at the thought of food. Chloe looks disappointed. She says she hoped the two of them could have dinner together. Gioma gets dressed and tells Chloe to follow him to buy ingredients. Later that evening, the two of them enjoy an incredible meal cooked by Gioma. Chloe is genuinely impressed. She grew up near the coast and loves fish. Gioma has plenty of experience preparing it, so the pairing is perfect. The itching in his hands has not gone away either. That makes this the perfect time to sharpen his skills by slicing some sashimi. There is just one problem: the blade god's blessing. Gioma cannot even hold a basic kitchen knife without activating it. He asks Chloe whether she has a larger knife. Using his actual weapons for cooking would be embarrassing. She heads to her room and returns with a huge sword, far too large for an ordinary fish. With no other option, Gioma is forced to use his blessing. Painlessness lasts for only 30 seconds, so he just has to work fast enough. He was once called the greatest swordsman in his country, and slicing fish has always been his specialty. Now it is time to prove it. Gioma cuts the fish into flawless slices and finishes in 21 seconds, leaving 9 seconds of painlessness unused. The entire dish is done so perfectly that he calls it a masterpiece. Chloe asks how he became so good at cooking. Gioma admits that he once worked part-time at a Japanese restaurant. Because she is a noble, Chloe has no idea what a part-time job is. Gioma explains that they come from completely different social worlds. Now that the meal is finished, Chloe offers to wash the dishes since Gioma cooked everything. He moves to the other side of the room to give her space. For the first time in nearly a week, Gioma is full. He can only hum happily. That humming stops when Chloe accidentally drops a plate behind him. She has probably never had to wash dishes before. Dropping plates was something Gioma did when he was her age. He stares out the window and pretends not to hear the dishes breaking behind him. A book falls from Chloe's study desk. It seems to be a diary. The book lands open on a page where Chloe wrote about Gioma saving her during the placement exam. Her handwriting is cute, with round shapes and little stickers. Gioma picks up the book and smiles at it. The wind flips the book to another section of Chloe's diary. She writes about meeting Gioma in class and becoming interested in him. He finds it genuinely adorable and cannot stop himself from turning more pages, admiring how pretty her writing is. He flips through several more pages and finds his name again. Then he sees countless pages filled with the words, "I love you." Another plate breaks. Gioma turns around and finds Chloe staring at him with empty, terrifying eyes. She simply asks whether he read her diary. Chloe's emotional state is not exactly new. It is part of her upbringing, almost like a defense mechanism. Heroes earn respect by defeating demonic monsters. That lets them climb the social ladder and build a worldwide reputation. But inside their stagnant society, certain factions abuse the weak in the name of power. When the law cannot punish those abusers, another group is called in from the shadows to deal with them. That family's name is the Sicilian Auditores. They are a family that maintains order through assassination. They are known for working in the shadows while others lead from the light. Anyone born into the Auditores family is trained to kill from the moment they reach adolescence. Their emotions are restrained, and brutal conditioning turns them into perfect assassination machines. Chloe belongs to this blood-stained family. The first time she stained her palms with blood, she was 15. Her entire life, she was told never to underestimate her abilities as an assassin. That training made Chloe completely aware of herself. But the endless repetition warped her nature and darkened her heart. Endless training eventually wears away almost all of Chloe's identity. Only traces of emotion remain when she becomes old enough for the academy. Walken Academy places students into different classes according to their aptitude. Every student has talent at the dragon level or higher. Members of families that prosper in the shadows are assigned to the general class under their family's decree. That was the agreement between the family and the academy. Chloe was told to stay hidden and avoid being discovered. Throughout her childhood, her family stripped away every member's freedom. Chloe accepted her fate as an assassin without protest. She already believed that nothing could change her destiny. Then she met someone she would never forget. She stood motionless and defenseless while the evil twins approached. The boy who looked like the weakest person in the room stepped forward to protect her. Death in the subspace battle royale was fake and carried no real danger. That boy still tried to save her. Chloe accepted death calmly and waited for the fate she believed was already decided. She had abandoned meaningless struggles long ago and trained herself to act meek and unnoticed. Somehow, because of the boy's intervention, it felt like he had broken through the clouds inside her mind. She watched him use his sword not to assassinate her, but to defend himself and protect her. Watching him fight for her reminds Chloe of a fairy tale. She used to read it secretly beneath her pillow. The story was about a princess imprisoned in a castle and rescued by a prince. The fairy tale memories filled her mind. Chloe felt a prick in her chest and watched her cheeks turn red. That unfamiliar feeling inside her was almost certainly love. Gioma has now committed the ultimate sin by looking into this girl's private thoughts. As Chloe stares at him, Gioma tries to think of a way out. Deep down, he knows he has already failed. He tries to figure out exactly how he ended up in this situation. Was it when he took advantage of a teenage girl's pure feelings? Or was it the moment he foolishly followed her because she offered to feed him? Either way, he is now staring death itself in the face, wearing the form of a teenage girl. His first priority has to be getting out. He changes the subject and comments on how beautiful the moon is. He casually tries to find a way out of the room without losing his head. Chloe does not let him finish. She asks again whether he saw her diary. Gioma tries to bluff, pretending he only saw a reference book and praising how much effort she puts into studying. None of that praise is going to save his life now. He cannot even believe she noticed him reading it while she was busy washing dishes. Chloe has even dropped the formal speech she used with him before. It is almost as if she became a completely different person out of nowhere. Gioma promises that he did not see anything. She keeps pressuring him until he finally admits that he read it. The moment he says it, Chloe decides his life must end. She draws the same sword she previously offered him for cutting fish. Gioma looks around and weighs his options. They are currently on the 4th floor, so jumping out the window is not an option. The only exit is through the front door. Chloe definitely will not let him leave with all his limbs attached. She truly is coming at him with the sword, and his time appears to be up. Gioma tries to figure out why her attitude changed so suddenly. He can think of only one possibility. Her dead, unfocused eyes and dark red stare can mean only one thing. He is dealing with a schoolbook yandere. Considering how she transformed from an adorable little strawberry into a vicious killer, the situation is even worse. She is a yandere with a split personality. Managing yandere traits alone would be difficult enough. Adding dissociative personality disorder makes the problem much worse. Her personality change seems to have been triggered by opening the diary. That kind of obsession could become seriously dangerous. Gioma knows she may follow him until the day he dies. He must snap her out of it before then. He has to secure his future by taking the initiative today. Otherwise, everything will get worse. The only way Gioma can leave alive is to get a weapon. He has only 9 seconds of painlessness left after spending 21 seconds slicing fish. His sashimi knife is still in his room. The kitchen knife is across the room and impossible to reach safely. Then Gioma spots a box cutter in the pencil holder on Chloe's desk. It is the only weapon he can reach before her sword lands. The tiny blade should be too small for the blade god's blessing. The system activates the blessing anyway. Chloe finally rushes him with her sword, and it looks like there is only one way to find out. Gioma grabs the box cutter, dumps the other stationery onto the floor, and unsheathes the blade. Several status windows appear in front of him. Being resourceful in a situation like this boosts his mental resilience, giving him a temporary intimidation buff. The system makes the necessary adjustments before activating the blessing. Chloe charges at him with her sword while Gioma backs away with the box cutter. Before she can cut him, he tells her that her hair is a little too long. Thanks to the intimidation boost, Chloe freezes for a moment. Gioma releases the blade. Everything goes dark and hazy. When Chloe wakes later that evening, her room is dark, tidy, and empty. Her thoughts immediately turn to Gioma, and she wonders where he went. She calls his name several times, but the silence confirms that she is alone. The last thing she remembers is catching glimpses of him while he looked out her window. Everything after that is blurry. She suddenly feels the need to look for her katana, but it is leaning against the study desk. Sometimes she loses consciousness when she holds a katana, but this time she seems to have pulled herself together. At least, that is what she thinks. When she was younger and still sharpening her skills, she used to black out whenever she held a blade. By the time she came to, the weapon would be covered in blood. Her seniors always threw her out whenever she asked what she had done while unconscious. They constantly reminded her never to deny her talent as an assassin. Still, the fact that she cannot remember what she did to Gioma makes her feel embarrassed. She buries her face in the bed. That shame quickly turns into something else when she starts thinking about Gioma. Then she notices the box cutter on the floor. Her hair also seems shorter. Inside the trash can, she finds strands of hair that were carefully cleaned up. That is when she realizes Gioma must have helped cut her hair. She opens her diary and writes a little more about how much she loves him. Gioma, meanwhile, is nowhere near as love-struck as Chloe. He can barely believe he is still alive. Gioma hides behind a blurry wall across the college. There, he throws up the meal he just praised Chloe for cooking. He barely made it through the first 5 seconds after the remaining 9 seconds of painlessness ran out. Even then, he still feels unbelievably sick. Gioma vomits the only decent meal he has eaten all week. Afterward, he sits on a bench and considers his next move. Now he is hungry again, and he feels even worse than before Chloe came to visit. His mind drifts back to Chloe, and he starts wondering who she really is. Her swordsmanship is clearly honed to end an opponent's life with one strike, or at least subdue them. The way she uses the sword makes it seem like she is constantly aiming for vital points. It is almost as if her technique specializes in assassination. If she had surprised him, Gioma would not have survived. He felt his life was in danger, so he instinctively aimed for her neck. Luckily, the knife was too short, so he only cut her hair. He cleaned up the mess before leaving, so there should not be any problems later. But it is another piece of evidence that maintaining a safe, quiet life is not as easy as it sounds. Apparently, being ordinary is the hardest thing in the world for him. When he was first dragged into this game, it was not like he had no ambition. In his previous life, he reached the peak of skill with nothing but a sashimi knife, so it is not as if he can simply abandon his dreams. Everyone has a role to play though. In this world, Gioma was summoned as a background character. Blessing of Miracle is the game's title, and it is also the protagonist's blessing. It was originally the blessing of the founding hero, Valère Jassian. In the entire game, only the protagonist and the founding hero ever possessed that legendary blessing. Its description is clear: save the world from the Demon King. The protagonist is chosen by Balmong, an SS-rank sacred sword that is also cursed. Meanwhile, all Gioma has is a humble, rankless sashimi knife. There is no other way to describe it. He is destined for a life of mystery, with an endless stream of unusual people and situations following him around. The chaos he has faced since entering the academy nearly makes him forget his goal. He already has too many reasons to abandon his simple life dream. Now the situation becomes even more painfully obvious. There may not be one ordinary person in this entire world. Because he played the game before, Gioma struggles to understand its main characters. His knowledge of the world itself is limited. He has been at the academy for a week. That means the protagonist should have already awakened his blessing and started the late admission process. This is where the game's story truly begins. Gioma knows the general plot, but he never played to the end. For the first time, he regrets quitting halfway through. Still, knowing the canon route through the first half of the story gives him a major advantage. All he has to do is stick to the canon route, no matter what. If he starts interfering with everything, he will lose the only advantage he has. From memory, he knows the story takes a sudden dark turn during the second semester of the third year. That is when the demons realize the protagonist has awakened. A Legion commander immediately leads an attack on the academy. As the fighting escalates, humans and demons enter an all-out war. From there, the game becomes a standard fantasy story. When Gioma played it, he only wanted to simulate the carefree, simple teenage life he never got to experience. So he deleted the game without a second thought. The problem is that he is now part of a world heading toward war. There is a very real chance he could die too. He still has 3 years before that happens. He needs to stop running from reality and focus on what he can do. He will not let himself die. He will focus on becoming stronger until he can survive. Besides, cheesy games like this always have happy endings where the protagonist saves the world. All Gioma needs is enough power to protect himself. He cannot allow himself to become a helpless weakling who gets killed. He just needs enough training to stay safe while keeping his profile as low as possible. To do that, he has to reduce his use of the Blade God's blessing. The few times he has relied on it, it put enormous strain on his body. It is powerful, but it comes with too many drawbacks for someone who loves an easy life. Thinking about the blessing activates its status window again. Strangely, there are new information entries he never noticed before. The 3 new entries are body, mind, and armament. The numbers beside them appear to be levels. They reflect his growth, and raising each one should reduce the strain on his body. There is another category called synchronization, but he has no idea what it means. Its description is nothing but a few question marks. He tries to tap it, but access is denied because he has not met the relevant conditions. That is another mystery added to this strange blessing. But it is not important right now. His main priorities are improving his body and finding a new weapon. He cannot rely on 30 seconds of painlessness forever. He also needs to learn how to use a sword that does not meet the blessing's condition. Fortunately, there will be monster hunting training for the midterm exams in 1 month. The reward is the long sword itself, a weapon that should serve him until graduation. It is also too large to activate his blessing, which makes it the perfect weapon for him. There is a lot left to discover, but Gioma feels like he is finally making progress. While he is lost in thought, a voice suddenly calls out to him. Gioma looks up and finds someone he never expected to see, much less speak to. She is Abel von Nibelung, the Blade Emperor's granddaughter. Gioma must avoid her if he wants the game's story unchanged. She tells him that he is sitting in her seat, but he is too stunned to move. She has to shout at him before the message finally reaches his brain, and he slides over to make room. Gioma still cannot get over how beautiful Abel is. He catches himself staring without even noticing. As he tries to leave, Abel tells him that he does not have to go. He can just shift over a little instead. It is strange that she would invite a random audience member to sit in her seat. Gioma left because he really does not want to get involved with her. He still cannot stop looking at her. Just as he expected from the game's heroine, Abel is genuinely stunning. Then, she suddenly starts talking, which shocks Gioma back into the present. That is definitely strange. The Abel he knows is normally isolated and does not talk to people. Even the handsome game protagonist could not warm her up. She keeps talking and asks whether he also uses a blade as his weapon. Gioma answers awkwardly, then asks how she knows. Abel says her grandfather once told her that swordsmen have a different look in their eyes. She shows him her sword and asks whether he wants to hold it. The whole situation still feels strange, so Gioma refuses. That makes her frown in annoyance. It seems like he understands what she is feeling, but he still cannot get used to her talking to him. Then Abel asks whether he knows who she is. Gioma is surprised at first, but that is a strange question for her to ask. There is not a single student at the school who does not know Abel. He gives her a blank answer and says he knows her, sort of. Abel tells him that she does not know him. She considers it a little unfair that he knows who she is while she has no idea who he is. Gioma disagrees. They only just met, so it is not important that they know each other's names. Abel then tells him he could be a Demon King spy infiltrating the academy in a student uniform. It is suspicious for him to be alone at this late hour. Although she seems to be saying random things, Gioma gets the feeling she is probing him. So he returns the question and asks why she is outside so late at night. From her clothes and the weapon at her side, it is obvious she has just finished training. Abel says she was doing breathing exercises, then points at him while talking. That accidentally gives Gioma a full view of the scars on her hands. She quickly hides them, but he has already seen them. They are marks of hard work, and Abel agrees. Of all people, she is expected to work the hardest. People do not understand what it means to belong to the Nibelung bloodline. They are expected to be perfect at all times, because one mistake is enough to turn them into a target. Abel then reveals that she is not the top student in the first year. It is the first time in her life that she has lost to someone. Somehow, even though she should be upset, she feels strangely liberated. She cannot stop wondering who defeated her and took the #1 spot. She wants to meet that person so she can tear them apart. Gioma coughs in shock and asks why she would go that far. Because she feels insulted. Abel begged her grandfather to tell her who the student was. Apparently, that person is not even in her class. They also skipped the ceremony, which means she had to stand in for them. That made her even more embarrassed when she received second place. She catches herself before her rant goes any further. It is strange that she decided to share all this information with someone she just met. That reminds Gioma to finally ask the question that has been on his mind the entire time. Why is Abel talking to him at all, considering her personality and how she normally feels about other people? The reason is definitely not what he expected. She says it is because he looks weak. Her family's motto is to be firm with the strong and merciful toward the weak. All her classmates are unbearable, so she does not have any friends. That explains why she treated the game's protagonist so coldly. After saying that, Abel stretches a little and prepares to leave. When she gets up, she pauses and asks whether Gioma really will not tell her his name. Just like before, Gioma refuses. There is no room for negotiation. Time keeps passing, and to Gioma's surprise, his academy life continues without any problems. Chloe seems to have made a few new friends away from him and settled into the class just fine. Gioma has been busy avoiding her since the incident in her room. Sometimes, when their eyes meet, her new friends look down on him because he is a special entrant. But Gioma has managed to stop caring about people who sneer at him for being special. After all, he is not the only special entrant in their class. There are not many of them, but they are all very good at avoiding each other. There is definitely some kind of inferiority complex at work. Gioma is certain things would be much worse if he had been placed in a higher class. By now, the students in Star and Dragon class have probably split into factions and started petty power struggles. Even when he played the game, that experience was stressful enough. Now that he lives in this world, the idea sends a chill down his spine. The good news is that he is finally getting proper meals. Medea gave him a faculty card as a special privilege for being the school's top student. It lets him eat whatever he wants in the cafeteria for free. He is absurdly grateful for that tiny gift. Even bowing at the director's office 3 times daily does not feel sufficient. He also performs all his student duties properly. More importantly, he avoids doing anything that could affect the main story. All he has to do is keep things this way for the next 3 years. His life should go smoothly. The days pass peacefully, and Gioma attends all his classes without trouble. During one lesson, an elderly teacher discusses the founding hero, Valor Jacian. Valère established the academy after realizing future heroes needed proper training. Gioma already knows most of this from the game. The founding hero, Valor Jacian, fought Lycan, the Demon King's right-hand man and commander of the First Legion. The battle lasted 20 years, and the hero finally won. Jacian lost one of his arms as a result, though, and could no longer fight. The war was full of slaughter and bloodshed. Even though the hero won the battle, neither side achieved a clear victory in the war. The first human-demon war ended in a truce. To train the next generation, Jacian founded the academy, and both races signed a non-aggression pact. That agreement created the 700 years of peace that still exists today. The students are certain they will never see a war in their lifetime. Gioma is the only one who knows that peace will break. The one person he wants to warn about the coming disaster is Medea. But doing that would also change the canon route, and he has no idea what the consequences would be. Medea constantly complains about leaving her position as academy director, but her perception blessing warns her that something serious is coming. To protect her students, she was the first of the 7 stars to step onto the front lines. Gioma never played the game that far, but he learned about her fate from the game's massive wiki. Medea was the first of the 7 stars to fall in battle against the Demon King's army. Knowing this makes it difficult to keep the war a secret. He wishes he had never learned it in the first place. The class ends, and the students start heading toward the school halls because some kind of commotion is happening there. It looks like things are finally about to begin. Gioma takes a moment to check his phone. Just as he suspected, it is May 5th, the day the game's protagonist finally joins the academy. He joins the crowd packed around the classroom door. Everyone is staring in awe, and some are already certain the newcomer will join Star Class. Just as Gioma suspected, the game's protagonist walks through the halls while the crowd parts for him. Leon von Reinhardt moves through the other students with an aura of confidence. Gioma knows that today marks the beginning of the collapse of 700 years of peace. He watches as everyone in the school tries to charm Leon, but he already knew this would happen. In the game, every woman seems to fall in love with him. If this were an adults-only game, Leon would have died before ever facing the Demon King. Among all the women attracted to him, the ones who join his party are impressive too. Leon von Reinhardt is the protagonist of Blessing of Miracle M. Annoyingly, he will be the first person recruited within the next 3 years. He calls it recruitment, but it is closer to forced enlistment. If Gioma gets recruited too, this will be his second time in the army. The protagonist barely managed to seal the First Legion commander. That makes Gioma wonder how powerful the Demon King really is. The protagonist cannot lose, right? While Gioma thinks about all this, his eyes meet Leon's. The protagonist gives him a charming smile, as if reassuring him without knowing what he is thinking. He is the protagonist, after all. There is no way he cannot handle threats like these. Gioma turns to leave the scene, but someone suddenly calls out from behind. It is Chloe, asking meekly whether she did something wrong. Gioma wants to tell her that she nearly cut his head off. They have to spend the next year together. Making things awkward would be a terrible idea. He lies and says there is no problem between them. He only wants to stay civil and avoid creating another enemy. Chloe seems relieved. She returns to acting sweet, just like the version Gioma remembers. That is completely different from the murderous psychopath he faced that day. Even unconscious, her swordsmanship feels filled with sorrow. Gioma senses the blade itself is desperate to survive. The killing intent radiating from the edge was still so intense that it made his skin crawl. If Chloe's swordsmanship exists simply to kill, she may be even more dangerous than the Mao brothers. His thoughts are interrupted when Chloe asks him to have dinner with her again tonight. She wants to treat him, but warns him that she is not as good at cooking as he is. The invitation to eat together brings Gioma's fear rushing back. Every survival instinct immediately tells Gioma to refuse. But the puppy eyes of a sweet girl are a terrifying weapon. It is nearly impossible to say no to a face that cute. Gioma feels guilty just thinking about rejecting her. If he agrees though, he might wake up inside a refrigerator tomorrow morning. Instead of dinner, he comes up with a better way to spend time together. He asks her for a favor and tells her she is the only person who can do it for him. Chloe immediately becomes eager. Gioma wants her to teach him swordsmanship. He needs a sword instructor anyway. Later, in the school training grounds, Gioma swings a wooden sword while testing his limits. Just as he expected, the sword's size prevents the blessing from activating. Now all he has to do is develop some swordsmanship. Chloe is insanely strong, which makes her the perfect person to train him. It is also a convenient excuse to avoid having dinner with her again. Since that day, Gioma makes sure to watch a video called Surviving a Yandere before going to bed. Somehow, it seems to help him deal with Chloe in the meantime. Chloe approaches him in casual clothes, a katana strapped to her hip. Gioma has just arrived because they planned to meet at 8, but Chloe has been waiting since 6. He takes a moment to admire her. Her short shirt gives him a clear view of her muscles. He never noticed them before because he only saw her in the school uniform. Now her strength makes perfect sense. Gioma hands her another wooden sword. Chloe looks confused because they are not using real swords. There is no way they can practice with live weapons. They definitely are not fighting with their lives on the line. There is no reason to use real blades. Chloe happily takes the wooden sword and tests the swing. The force of her thrust sends a small shockwave crashing between them. Her strike is so powerful that the surrounding air trembles. Gioma immediately questions his decision to ask her for training. Right now, he needs a sword and an abundance of caution. Before they begin, Gioma decides to check his blessing again. Fortunately, the sword's length is not a problem, and his body has been growing steadily. Now that he thinks about it though, it is strange for the blessing's experience to increase. He cannot remember whether blessings also come with extra effects. He also has no idea how much he needs to grow before the mysterious hidden trait appears. Chloe walks over and asks what is wrong. Gioma remembers that he is the only person who can see his status screen. To her, he must look like a man zoning out for no reason. He turns around to begin their training. He nervously asks Chloe to go easy on him since it is their first day. Then he raises his sword and faces her. In his previous life, Gioma learned everything through practical experience. He firmly believes that nobody masters anything without giving up a piece of themselves. You have to be willing to sacrifice your entire being. The reason he adapted so quickly at the academy is the training he received in his former unit. He learned from a young age how to read the moment something grows and the moment it stalls. Even now, he can tell that his stance and grip are far from perfect. Still, every final strike has to land on the opponent. Gioma opens his eyes to begin the spar and sees Chloe charging at him with all her strength. He barely has time to dodge the first strike before Chloe changes her stance and launches another attack. He can barely block it. Somehow, as the fight continues, she seems to get faster. Gioma can barely keep up with her pace. On top of that, she may be holding back because he asked her to go easy. Her sword crashes against his again, and this time the wood begins to crack from the force. Her relentless assault does not slow down. She keeps striking while Gioma can barely dodge and evade. With that much power behind her attacks, one clean hit could kill him. He cannot find any opening for a counterattack. Before he can even figure out how to counter, his sword finally runs out of durability and snaps in half. Chloe tries to apologize and says she was going as gently as possible. She still broke it in the end. That is not even her biggest concern. The sword has shrunk in size and length. That means it now satisfies the condition for activating the Blade God's blessing. Something is terribly wrong though. The weapon is damaged, causing a system error. Instead of suppressing the blessing's full power, the pressure begins changing Gioma's personality. By the time the change is complete, his humanity level has dropped, leaving behind a combat shell. The Blade God's blessing fully activates. Gioma grips the half-broken wooden sword as a threatening aura forms around him. Chloe backs away, realizing that the entire situation has started to change. While Gioma's body seems to move automatically, inside Gioma's mind, he is back in his old kitchen. Everything feels like a dream. All he can think about now is cleaning and slicing the fish in front of him. He does not remember what he was doing before this, but he has a job to finish. It has been a long time since he worked on a fish this large. He decides to use a Chinese cleaver this time. When he tries to pick it up, a message appears, telling him he cannot. He tries to grab a different knife, but another message says the same thing. Only one option remains, the sashimi knife. It is the only blade the system allows him to hold, but he remembers that touching it will hurt. Still, he chooses it, and he feels completely fine. If anything, he feels refreshed. A voice speaks inside his head, telling him to accept the situation and let things happen. Back in the real world, Gioma keeps walking toward Chloe with obvious bloodlust. She tries to call out to him, but he continues forward. Suddenly, he lunges. Chloe barely manages to block the attack with her sword. Gioma drives her blade back and sends her flying into the wall. He feels completely different from the person she fought earlier. He leaps toward her and tries to stab her with the sharp end of the broken wooden sword. Chloe barely jumps backward and avoids the strike. One hit has already battered her badly, and she can barely move. Chloe cannot understand how Gioma changed so suddenly. She has to find a way to stop him before he accidentally kills her. She begs him to stop again, but Gioma ignores her and attacks once more. He moves too fast for her to avoid the strike in her current condition. All she can do is keep pleading with him. Finally, she screams his name as the sword crashes straight toward her head. Back inside Gioma's dream world, he wonders why the fish he is trying to cut keeps avoiding him. The fish also seems to be making a lot of noise as it bounces around. Gioma can barely understand what it is saying. It sounds like the fish is calling someone's name. The voice becomes clearer until he can just barely hear it calling for someone named Gioma. Jeff Kim's mind begins to clear. He finally realizes that Gioma is the one the fish is calling. He can barely understand what is happening because he is about to stab Chloe with the broken sword. Before the wood can pierce her skin, Gioma throws the sword into the wall. Before he can accidentally kill his friend, Chloe opens her eyes and sees Gioma holding her and smiling. He is no longer carrying the sword. The blessing ends, and he returns to his senses. Chloe nervously asks whether he is all right. Gioma calmly tells her he is fine, then turns to leave while thanking her for helping him train. After he leaves, Chloe returns to her dorm too. She has had a strange feeling about Gioma since the entrance exam. His abilities are even stranger than they are powerful. While fighting him, she could tell that he was not using refined technique. He was relying on raw instinct. Even though he activated the Blade God's blessing unconsciously, it was not suited to him. And yet, even with that wooden sword, he completely overwhelmed her. As Chloe walks across campus, someone steps out of the shadows and comments that she looks perfectly satisfied. The mysterious newcomer is Nox Auditore, Chloe's older brother. Nox mocks her for hanging around a commoner after joining the academy. Chloe knows he is talking about Gioma and warns him not to speak about her friend that way. Nox does not even know Gioma's name yet. He warns Chloe to avoid spending time with him unless the Auditore family erases him. Chloe turns away and tells Nox that even the Auditore family would not be a match for Gioma. As Chloe walks away, Nox wonders about the man who changed his sister so completely. Speaking of Gioma, he also stops on his way home to think about his blessing. The power granted to him is a long way from a divine gift. If anything, it feels more like a curse. To avoid relying on the Blade God's blessing, Gioma has tried to find new weapons. So far, that power has chased him down and taken over his body, almost mocking his efforts to avoid it. When he fought Chloe, he felt no pain. Instead, he felt pleasure, as if he were drunk. Just like a curse, the blessing played with him like a puppet. It whispered sweet words into his ear, telling him to cut, and destroy. Because of that, he surrendered his body until Chloe's screams pulled him back to his senses. He suddenly remembered his own name and returned to reality. That gave him just enough awareness to throw away the wooden sword. He felt that he would lose more of himself forever if he did not get rid of it immediately. The situation is almost funny in the worst possible way. Chloe almost killed Gioma only a short time ago. Now she is the one who pulls him back. Gioma was angry that she broke the sword in the first place, but in the end, he felt deeply grateful. That is why he did not make a scene when he returned to reality. He is terrified of activating the Blade God's blessing again. Today proves that he cannot ignore the problem for the rest of his life. This power is something he has to deal with for the rest of his life. That is why living normally may never happen for him. Gioma practically crawls all the way back to his room. He senses something inside him devouring his common sense. This is definitely not a blessing. It is a curse trying to consume him completely. 3 days later, classes continue as usual. Chloe talks with her new friends, but something is clearly wrong. Since the duel, Gioma has not come to class. They never exchanged contact information, so she cannot even check on him. Every time she visits his dorm, the only response to her knocking is painful groaning. She considers breaking down the door, but she is afraid he will hate her for it. She likes watching him from her seat during class. She has lost count of how many times she secretly looked at him during the day. At first, she thought she was attracted to him because he risked his life for her. At this point, that may only be an excuse. Whatever the reason, she is attracted to him now. She simply misses him. The next day, Gioma still does not come to class. The teacher shouts at everyone to settle down and be quiet. It is raining, so he tells them they will have study hall instead of training. As the students take their seats, he notices that Gioma has been absent for several days. Still, knowing Gioma, there must be a reason. So the instructor decides to wait patiently until he returns on his own. While the teacher disciplines everyone, the classroom doors open. Gioma quietly enters with a completely different appearance. Chloe jumps up from her seat in shock. Gioma apologizes to the instructor for being late. His eyes are sunken and almost dead, while a lock of his hair has turned pale white. Even the instructor is startled by Gioma's new look. Just like the rest of the students, he nervously orders Gioma to sit down. The students notice that Gioma looks different and strangely more handsome. By the end of the day, the other students leave to handle their own business. Chloe approaches Gioma for the first time in 4 days. She anxiously asks what happened and why he was absent for so long. Gioma stays quiet before admitting that he felt slightly sick. He assures her that she does not need to worry. From her trembling voice, he can tell she does not fully believe him. There is nothing else he can say to convince her. For the last 3 days, he experienced something like severe withdrawal symptoms until he became mentally exhausted. He could not leave his room or eat anything. He buried himself in bed and prayed for the spasms to stop. The pain during that time was much worse than before. All of it was the price of using the damaged weapon. On top of that, when he looked in the mirror, his appearance seemed mostly the same. His expression was more hollow, and his hair appeared to be turning white. This was clearly punishment from the Blade God. Chloe looks guilty. The last time she saw him was in the training grounds. She probably believes the whole thing is somehow her fault. To calm her down, Gioma asks whether she is still interested in having dinner with him like she wanted before. This shocks Chloe even more than his return to class. She nearly throws herself into his arms. It seems like he made the right choice because she absolutely loves the suggestion. She asks what he wants to eat, and the first thing that comes to mind is fish. While they talk, Gioma feels something strange. He turns to see someone staring at them from the end of the hall. It is Nox, Chloe's brother, and the mood changes the moment he appears. Gioma walks straight over to confront the newcomer. He tells him that instead of staring, he should come in and talk to them. He immediately notices something wrong with the man's eyes, but Chloe tries to step between them before anything crazy happens. Her voice is trembling, and there is obvious hesitation in the way she moves. She is still trying to protect him in her own way. Nox asks Chloe whether this is really the man she chose to break the auditory rules for. Chloe insists she wants nothing to do with her family. Her brother reminds her that blood cannot be washed away. If someone is born an auditory, they will always be an auditory. Chloe sounds like she is rebelling against a historical drama. Her brother answers like he is delivering a line from that same drama. Gioma is irritated by the entire exchange. Nox keeps insulting him, and eventually Chloe snaps. She shouts at Nox to stop talking about the man she loves that way. Even he is shocked by the anger in her voice. Gioma hoped this whole situation would at least stay manageable. He is starting to get used to the disruptions in his life. More importantly, he recognizes the auditores. They are a group that works in the shadows and specializes in assassination. They appear halfway through the game to play a major role. They are said to be weaker than the other heroic houses. Nobody compares to them when it comes to killing. Every member of the auditory clan is ridiculously strong because of the abusive training system they endure from childhood. It turns them into advanced assassination tools. If Chloe comes from this assassination group, then her sweet, cheerful personality is the abnormal one here. Unlike his sister, Nox has the expression of someone who is used to killing. Gioma has nothing against that, but Chloe clearly wants to live a normal life instead. Just like the Blade God's blessing, the auditory environment was something Chloe never had a choice about. She was destined to live as an emotionless killer, and that is almost tragic to think about. Gioma does not consider himself a hero, and he has no intention of becoming one. But even if he cannot save the world, he can at least try to save one girl. He steps between Chloe and her brother and faces Nox directly. Gioma has spent all this time trying to escape the Blade God's blessing, but he could not. So instead, he will step forward and accept the curse. After all, Gioma's name means Sword Demon. With that, he walks past the two killers and tells Nox to follow him. Meanwhile, Lee Wanbin sits in his office with thoughts of his student circling his mind. When Gioma came to class that morning, it was obvious that something had happened to him. His expression was empty, and he looked deeply troubled. As Lee Wanbin thinks, another instructor enters the room cheerfully and makes a joke about the man's bald head. Before they can continue talking, Lee Wanbin receives a call from the academy officials. They want his permission to let one of his students use the subspace. Lee Wanbin urgently asks which student suddenly requested access. They confirm that Kang Gioma made the request, hoping to face Nox Auditore. The stage is set for a fight between Gioma and Nox. The announcer waits patiently in the room with 15 minutes remaining before the battle begins. Gioma expected the process of accessing the subspace to be complicated, but it happens incredibly fast. That is definitely thanks to Medea, who at least wants him to be safe while fighting a professional assassin. At least he will not be fighting in reality, so he does not have to worry about physical injuries. There is still a very good chance he will suffer mental damage though. None of that matters as long as he can win. He can hear the noise from the arena through the waiting room. It seems the argument between the two students has created an accidental spectacle. It is almost ridiculous. Gioma spent all this time trying not to stand out, and now none of it matters. Beside him, Chloe is practically drowning in sadness and guilt. She may be blaming herself for this whole situation. Gioma tries to assure her that it is not really her fault. She even lent him some equipment, so everything should turn out fine in the end. Chloe warns him that Nox is incredibly strong. His talent is unmatched throughout the Auditor family's entire history. When it comes to the dark arts, nobody reaches his level. At 14, people were already calling him the peak of the dark arts. It is an embarrassing title, but it shows how powerful he is. Gioma stares at the pink blade in his hand while remembering the decisions that brought him here. His old teacher always told him that he was destined to use a sword for the rest of his life. He never expected to still be running around with a sashimi knife in his next reincarnation. An announcement comes through the loudspeaker, informing the students that the subspace battle is about to begin. Giamma gets up to leave the waiting room, but not before reassuring Chloe one more time that he will win. He steps into the arena and is immediately blasted by the excited cheers of his classmates. With the intensity of the atmosphere, Giamma feels like one of the gladiators in the Roman Empire. From a distance, he sees the entire star class watching. That audience also includes the game's main cast. Nox enters too, and he immediately draws everyone's attention. The assassin looks so insulted that Giamma dared to challenge him with a girly kitchen knife. The man's killing intent is not good news. Giamma should probably do everything he can to avoid provoking him. So naturally, Giamma provokes him even more by saying that a true master never blames his equipment. Nox draws his blade, an S-rank sword called the Galactic Twin Blades. On top of his powerful equipment, he also possesses one of the best blessings in the game, the Crow's Blessing. Giamma, meanwhile, comes prepared with discounted kitchen knives. This is truly a battle for the history books. The subspace barrier deploys. Before it becomes fully active, both students leap at each other. Giamma activates Painlessness as he reveals his knives, which activates the Blade God's blessing. The spectators watch in awe because they can barely see anything happening inside the arena. This was supposed to be an easy match, where a skilled assassin demolished a special entrant, but the two fighters are moving so fast that the students cannot follow the battle at all. Even the Star Class students are surprised by how interesting this fight becomes. Abel especially cannot believe that the person she called weak has such incredible combat ability. Their blades keep colliding, but Giamma dodges every one of Nox's attacks with ease. The assassin grows frustrated and launches another attack so quickly that it creates 3 afterimages. Somehow, even when the attacks seem to strike Giamma directly, he still comes away untouched. The students watching praise Nox's strength and speed, seeing the fight as Giamma escaping every attack by a miracle. Abel knows the truth that nobody else can see. Only someone who can view the match clearly would understand what is happening. Giamma is avoiding every one of Nox's attacks perfectly, as if he is not even trying to fight. Nox becomes more irritated after activating the Crow's Blessing. He believed it would be enough to erase Giamma, but Giamma handles everything as if it were nothing. Now that Nox has seen Giamma's skill for himself, he decides to be more careful. He aims for a powerful strike that can cut across a wide area in one blow. Suddenly, Giamma drops the sashimi knife he brought with him and grips the pink blade Chloe gave him. The confidence in his stance makes Nox even angrier. He does not think someone like Giamma should have the nerve to act superior. As Giamma launches his attack, Nox activates a powerful attack of his own, aiming to finish him in one strike. Before either of them can move again, Giamma begins his attack. In the blink of an eye, the match is decided. Giamma wanted a comfortable life, so he followed the rules and tried not to stand out. Giamma surrenders his body to the Blade God with one goal. He will cut Nox before Nox even realizes it happened. The entire crowd falls into a deathly silence. Nox's arm flies through the air while still gripping a blade. The severed arm finally crashes onto the ground. This is the beginning of Kang Giamma's legend. It is also the moment he says goodbye to his peaceful future. Giamma turns around and finishes the job, cutting Nox into clean pieces and officially ending the battle. The subspace barrier shuts down. The crowd remains frozen in stunned silence while Nox lies on the ground. He tries to catch his breath with only one arm. Giamma returns his blade to its handle as the announcer declares him the winner. The crowd still cannot cheer. Giamma has shown unbelievable strength out of nowhere, all with a knife made for gutting fish. Despite the power he displayed, he still feels that cutting a person is deeply unpleasant. Mao Jun, Shun Mao, and Nox were fighting inside the subspace. That means Giamma did not actually kill anyone. Nox is still trying to catch his breath on the ground, and Giamma cannot help admiring him. He is exactly as strong as Chloe described, with an incredible combat sense sharpened through experience. Even so, anyone would have been able to feel his intent through the killing aura. The announcer repeats that Giamma won the duel. That is enough to snap everyone out of their shock. The arena erupts in cheers and disbelief because a first-year special entrant just took down a second-year student. Giamma's peaceful, unremarkable life is officially over, but this is the path he chose. Now that things have gone this far, he can only endure them with absolute willpower and determination. Even the next day, everyone is still talking about the duel between the first-year and second-year students. In Star Class, Abel stares out the window while thinking about the student who has completely filled her mind. Because of the duel, his name follows her everywhere she goes. It feels like he is the only thing anyone can talk about. Even Abel cannot believe what she saw. He displayed incredible swordsmanship, using nothing but kitchen knives. Watching his mastery of the blade makes her feel almost foolish for thinking she was skilled with a sword. His skill convinces her that he must be the academy's top student. She believes her grandfather has been secretly hiding him. That makes her even more frustrated. She spoke to him as if he were weak when he was actually stronger than her. Her loud irritation is enough to wake her roommate, Rachel. Abel apologizes to her friend, but Rachel can immediately tell that something is seriously bothering her. The blue-haired girl tries to brush it off by saying she is frustrated. She has not been able to train lately. Rachel sees right through it. She makes a few guesses about what could be bothering Abel. She hits the nail on the head when she suggests it might be a boy. Rachel bursts into unrestrained laughter at the thought of Lady Abel being interested in romance. Abel keeps trying to convince her that it is not what she thinks. Rachel ignores that and focuses on figuring out what made this boy important to her dear friend. She runs through the options, starting with Leon, the handsome star-class celebrity. but Abel looks so horrified at the suggestion that he is clearly not the answer. That leaves only one choice, the special entrant from yesterday's duel, the student whose strength shocked the entire school. Abel freezes again and cannot deny it. That is all the information Rachel needs. She immediately grabs Rachel's hand and drags her toward Tiger Class to meet the boy, occupying everyone's thoughts. Abel follows reluctantly as the two of them burst into the classroom. Everyone in the room freezes in shock as the two beauties walk through the class. Rachel stands on a desk, and someone tries to scold her for suddenly jumping onto another student's seat. She completely disarms him by showing off how beautiful she is. Abel can only hold her head in embarrassment over her friend's behavior. Eventually, they find Gioma asleep at his desk, while Chloe hovers over him. At first, Rachel mistakes Chloe for his girlfriend, but she does not care. That only makes the whole thing more fun. She approaches Gioma and lovingly blows air into his ear, shocking both Abel and Chloe. As Gioma slowly wakes, Rachel sits on his desk with a flirtatious look and asks his name. Gioma already knows exactly who she is. He is not excited to suddenly have another heroine from the game in front of him. Rachel leans closer and pokes Gioma in the face, finishing off his confusion. He has no idea what is happening, but his instincts are screaming that the entire situation is dangerous. Suddenly, the hand Rachel is about to use to poke him is caught by an extremely angry-looking Chloe. Chloe demands to know what Rachel thinks she is doing. Rachel is amused by Chloe's anger and killing intent. Gioma's danger instincts were warning him about Chloe for a reason. Her personality completely flips when she produces the box cutter from her Yandere pocket dimension. If a knife fight breaks out in the classroom, Gioma could have serious problems. This combination is something he has never seen in the game before. He cannot help wondering why it is suddenly happening. Abel steps in and tries pulling her friend away. Rachel is not even one of Chloe's classmates, but Rachel refuses to move. She claims she is only there to say hello. Then, as if she wants to rub salt in the wound, Rachel puts her hand on Chloe's head. She tells her not to interrupt when adults are talking. Chloe becomes even angrier, opens the box cutter, and prepares to strike. Gioma and Abel watch in shock as Chloe tries to stab Rachel. The much stronger girl catches her hand with ease. At this point, Rachel is deliberately provoking Chloe into a fight. Abel shouts at her again to stop before something bad happens. Rachel frowns and quickly throws Chloe away like a piece of paper, but Chloe catches herself before hitting the ground. All the boys in the classroom cheer like they are watching a cat fight. Gioma is more annoyed than anything else by the bizarre scene unfolding in front of him. Rachel then activates the blessing tied to her clan, the Spear Saint clan. Her clan believes skills are useless when faced with overwhelming power. Brute force defeats everything else. Rachel Diura, the Spear Saint's niece, believes the same motto. She bluntly asks Gioma whether Chloe is his girlfriend. Gioma immediately says no, which temporarily redirects Chloe's aggression toward him. He explains that Chloe is just a friend, and Rachel becomes even more interested in the whole situation. Meanwhile, Gioma is still trying to understand what is happening in this world. He is more awake and has a chance to look around. He finally notices Abel, who looks just as exhausted as she did not long ago. Gioma gets straight to the point and asks why the two of them came looking for him. Rachel says Abel was interested in him and wanted to see his face. Abel shouts that the accusation is completely untrue and that Rachel practically dragged her there. Rachel assumes Abel genuinely wanted to see him because she followed her all the way to Tiger Class. As the entire class turns its attention toward her, Abel shyly tries to explain that there has been a misunderstanding. Gioma just wants both girls to leave. He tells them that bluntly, shocking both of them. Rachel can barely stop laughing. That makes her even more interested in Gioma. She likes men who are interesting. Rachel tries to invite him to her bedroom after class to do some wicked things together. That is the final straw for Chloe. She screams at Rachel to stay away from Gioma. Rachel tries to tease her again, but even Abel has had enough. She can barely keep her anger under control as Rachel flirts. Rachel senses the situation may go too far, and finally backs down. Before leaving, she promises Gioma they will meet again. Gioma immediately refuses and asks her not to come back. The two girls finally leave the classroom. Gioma immediately goes back to sleep, while Chloe hurries to check on him. Nobody notices Abel pause for a moment and stare longingly at Gioma before walking away. Abel and Chloe continue back toward their classroom, while Rachel cannot get over how much she likes Gioma's attitude. Being cold is one thing, but his hollow eyes show something darker. Rachel senses he might cut her throat if she keeps provoking him. She was only curious about him, but he exceeded her expectations and actually gave her chills. From what little she saw, Rachel can already tell he effortlessly surpasses every other style in the academy. Her clan does not throw punches when it comes to securing an engagement with the greatest warriors. Somehow, Gioma may be a valuable resource they cannot afford to give up. Rachel suddenly turns around and apologizes to Abel. Abel assumes she is apologizing to the Tiger Class students for the scene she caused. That is not what Rachel means. Rachel is apologizing for Gioma because she will not give up now that she has become interested in him. Elsewhere, in the school clinic, Nox angrily drags himself through the halls with only one thought in mind: killing Gioma. He has lived his entire life without knowing defeat and was always called the auditore genius. Now someone defeated him with nothing but kitchen knives. Just thinking about Gioma's face makes him furious. If he has to, Nox will summon the full strength of his clan just to cut Giomma's head off. Then, once he kills Giomma, he will take Chloe back. Chloe has the potential to become his equal, if not something greater. He will not let some random special entrant take her away. All he has to do is call on his clan's power, strike, and then she will return to him. At least, that is what should have happened. The same Giomma that Nox was planning to kill without mercy is sitting calmly in the clinic, eating an apple. Earlier, while class was still in session, Giomma watched Chloe with concern. The two girls leave, but Chloe is clearly still upset. That is rich, considering Chloe drew the blade first. While Chloe spirals into dark thoughts, Giomma walks over to calm her down. He could probably talk her through whatever mental breakdown she is about to have. He still wishes she would at least put the box cutter away when speaking to him. He asks how Nox is doing. Chloe sadly tells him that her brother is in the Academy's medical wing. That is strange. People cannot be injured inside the subspace, so there should be no reason for medical care. The last thing Chloe heard was that Nox had been admitted despite having no injuries. It should be fine, and Giomma should have no reason to worry. Naturally, he cannot stop thinking about it. Nox was cut into pieces inside the subspace. He is not weak enough to be traumatized by that alone. To make sure nothing else happened, Giomma needs to check on him. He asks Chloe where Nox's room is. To sweeten the deal, he pats her on the head, another tip he learned from how to handle a yander. That brings us to the present. Giomma stares at Nox, who is still shocked to see him standing in his room. Giomma comments on the room and wonders how the auditors could afford such a luxurious private hospital suite. Before Nox can question how he entered, Giomma reaches toward the bedside table. He picks up the paring knife waiting there. Nox stiffens for a moment, wondering whether Giomma wants to finish what he started. Instead, Giomma simply grabs another apple, peels it cleanly, and places the fruit back on the table. Then he stands up and walks past Nox, advising him to eat more fruits and vegetables for his health. That makes Nox even angrier. The assassin reveals a hidden knife beneath his sleeve, ready to stab Giomma when he least expects it. Giomma seems to predict Nox's next move already. He warns that any revenge will get the entire auditory family sliced apart. With that, Giomma closes the door behind him. The force is strong enough to turn the neatly peeled apple into slices. This reveals that he cut it so quickly, Nox never noticed. Giomma leaves the medical wing, hoping his mission is complete. Nox is now nothing more than a candle that could go out at any moment. His will has been completely shattered. All of it is thanks to Giomma's intimidation buff, which he hopes will not come back to bite him. After all, the auditories are an incredible group of professional killers. There is no way he could defeat an entire clan with only 30 seconds of painlessness. He might be able to eliminate 10 people in 30 seconds. The rest of the clan would be a completely different situation, and that is only the worst-case scenario. Either way, Giomma prefers to avoid killing whenever possible. He walks beneath the moonlight toward his dorm. He feels strangely like he is standing in the eye of a storm. He is starting to get used to this insane new life. As long as Nox does not cause any trouble, Giomma does not need to worry about things becoming even crazier. But he has another problem to deal with. Rachel, the girl he wanted to avoid most of all. In the original game, Rachel approaches the main character first and becomes close with the heroine, Abel. Now that she has chosen to approach Giomma instead, it is obvious that the timeline has changed dramatically. He also needs to prepare for the midterms. For once, he will have to take things seriously if he wants to claim the reward. The test requires a team of 5 students to subdue a demonic monster. The 5 students will be selected regardless of class, and the exam is designed to test teamwork. Individual skill is important, but trusting your teammates is even more valuable on a battlefield. A weak student needs the right teammates in this situation. After that, he can only pray they carry him. Fortunately, the monsters they will hunt should not be too much trouble. The exam's targets are steep demonic sea monsters called mermaids. Giomma remembers that they look truly disgusting in the game. That means meeting them in real life will be even worse. If they were actual beautiful mermaids, at least they would be pleasant to look at. But these mermaids are demonic humans and a major force in the demon army, which makes them far more powerful. Compared with demonic humans, ordinary demonic monsters are little more than guard dogs or pets. Fortunately, there should only be one mermaid on the island. The students will not have to deal with demonic humans. Giomma has been at the academy for a month, and this is the first night he feels even slightly peaceful. Humanity and the demons have maintained their truce for 700 years. Human history is never free of war. There have been several conflicts between humans and demons, both large and small. One famous example happened half a century earlier. Phasmon, commander of the 6th Legion, claimed he could revive the 1st Legion commander. That decision caused a full week of battles that drenched the city in blood. Humanity eventually won, and the 7 Stars heroes were born. 3 of those heroes were sacrificed, but neither side wanted to escalate the conflict any further. Aside from that, peace has continued to this day. But Giomma wonders whether this is really peace. The more Giomma thinks, the clearer the truth becomes. Someone sealed the 1st Legion commander alone 700 years ago. That person must have been an absolute monster. The 6th Legion commander needed 7 people working together to bring him down. Even then, members of the group died. Now only 3 years remain before the second human-demon war begins. This time, the Demon King himself will be involved. That future is terrifying to think about, but thinking will not change anything. Gioma needs to focus on the upcoming midterms. The first thing he has to do is find teammates. That is easier said than done, because he has no friends. Still, he is now the most famous student in the academy. Maybe he can use that reputation to solve the problem. There is no way he can stay under the radar for 3 years. Gioma decides to change his motto for now. He will no longer try to live quietly. He will simply try to live comfortably. Now he has to do his best to convince people to join his group. A week later, he is still completely alone. Nobody has invited him to join their team. They may all be afraid of him. Gioma looks across his class, and the only person like him is Chloe. Maybe everyone sees her as an outsider because of her fight with her brother and the way he lost. Maybe it is because of the way she acted when Rachel arrived. Whatever the reason, Gioma approaches her and asks whether she has found any teammates for the exam yet. Just like him, Chloe is still alone. Gioma worries about her. He is used to being alone, but Chloe had at least made a few friends. Now they are all gone. Chloe says she will be fine as long as she has him. Gioma offers to team up so the two of them can find 3 more members. With Chloe's abilities, she will be a massive asset. Gioma can fight for only 30 seconds, so she is like 30 soldiers packed into one cute bundle. The class is split when Rachel starts calling Gioma. He makes no effort to hide his annoyance at seeing her again. Chloe makes no effort to hide her bloodlust as she pulls out the box cutter. Rachel keeps bothering Gioma until she falls onto his desk. She asks whether he has found a team for the exam. Since it is obvious he is not listening, he answers her question. The fact that he still has no team is perfect for Rachel, because she invites him to join hers. Gioma is suspicious of the sudden offer. There are plenty of other students available, so why come to him specifically? Rachel tells him plainly that he looks more fun to take the exam with than anyone else in her class. Gioma tells her he has already teamed up with Chloe. Rachel says that is fine because her group has 2 spots left. Gioma is still suspicious because this is an even bigger risk for Rachel. A bad performance on the island could damage her grades. He looks at Chloe, who reluctantly nods and agrees to join the group. With nothing holding him back, Gioma says he will join. Rachel immediately opens her phone to recruit someone, after warning Gioma that he cannot take the offer back. Gioma asks who the other members are. The first name Rachel mentions is Leon. Not just any Leon either. The protagonist of this world, and the one person Gioma wants to interact with least. Gioma cannot help wondering what crimes he committed in his past life to receive such terrible luck. Yes, he spent 30 years carrying a knife, but that was because of his job. He has no idea why he keeps getting tangled up with heroines. Even though he has tried his best not to stand out, he is still getting dragged into the main story. At least the heroines are eye candy, so getting involved with beautiful girls is not all bad. The real problem is Leon von Reinhardt. He is the main character, and interacting with him will definitely turn the main plot upside down. Gioma has no idea how the future will unfold now, but he is certain everything will somehow be his fault. He even tries to see whether he can change teams. Rachel enters his name into the application before he can speak. This is the first time in his life he has wanted to cut a girl this badly. Then of course there is the biggest yandere problem in the class. Speaking of the devil, Chloe walks over and asks how he is doing since he looked terrified after Rachel left. Gioma tells her he is just a little overwhelmed by the idea of taking the exam with star class students. Chloe tells him there is nobody in star class stronger than him, and he gives her a weak thank you. He already chose Chloe to join his team. Taking the exam without her would leave him feeling guilty. Thinking about it rationally, there is no better person for him to take the test with. This could actually be a good thing if he were not so pessimistic. Gioma asks Chloe when and where the first group meeting will be. She tells him it will be at a campus cafe. It is almost time for the meeting, so Gioma suggests they head there now. They arrive first and order drinks. Chloe happily buys herself a delicious avocado juice. Gioma watches with envy and wonders how much 1 cup costs. Gioma feels jealous when he thinks about how expensive 1 cup of avocado juice must be. He takes a sip of his cheap coffee and nearly has a seizure from how terrible it tastes. Since this cafe is an outside business, the faculty cards do not work. For the first time, Gioma has to use his own money. As he reconsiders every decision in his life, his phone rings with a message from Rachel. She tells him that she entered the booth with Leon and another person, who follows closely behind her. Leon and Gioma meet for the first time. Then Gioma looks at the person beside him. His first impression is that the guy has to be some kind of pervert. Leon is the first to introduce himself, extending his hand toward Gioma. Gioma shakes it, and Leon compliments him on the battle he fought in the subspace a few days ago. Just from the way Leon speaks, Gioma can tell that he is the perfect mix of intelligence and class. They all sit down, and Rachel suggests they do proper introductions. Leon goes first, introducing himself as the group's leader and a star class student. Somehow, Gioma ends up becoming the group's leader. He sounds sincere when he says he looks forward to working together. Rachel introduces herself next, but everyone there already knows who she is. She passes the turn to the person sitting beside her. His name is Speedarm, and he is also a star class student. His introduction is short and direct, but Gioma is more interested in his unusual name. Chloe goes next and introduces herself as a Wolf class student who joined the group because of Gioma. Rachel teases her for calling Gioma Gioma-kun instead of just using his name. The two girls stare at each other for several tense seconds. Chloe finally sighs, calms herself, and finishes her introduction. Finally, Gioma introduces himself. His introduction is even shorter and more direct than Speedarm's. He gives only his name and his class. The others awkwardly acknowledge Chloe's rather strange introduction. Leon opens a laptop and moves everyone toward the meeting's main topic. He presses a button, and a three-dimensional map of the area where they will take the exam appears. The location is called Scapuli Island. The students will be teleported to a specific location on the island through the subspace. Only the gateway is subspace, though. Once they arrive on the island, the exam becomes real, and the demonic monsters can actually injure them. Their group's assigned area is on the northeast coast, where 3 groups, including theirs, will hunt mermaids. The area contains a limited number of mermaids. The goal of the exam is to hunt as many as possible. Leon finishes the presentation and asks his group whether they have any questions. Speedarm goes first and asks whether there are any dangers on the island besides the mermaids. The instructors already researched the island beforehand to make sure no other monsters or demons were present. Chloe then asks whether the other groups can ambush each other and fight among themselves. The rest of the group stares at her in shock. Leon calmly confirms that the exam objective is to eliminate demonic monsters. Fighting between groups could lead to disqualification. That question must be part of Chloe's assassin instincts. With no other questions, Leon dismisses them and tells everyone to prepare for the midterms. They will meet again the next day for another discussion. The other students leave the cafe, leaving Gioma alone with Leon. The atmosphere becomes awkward, so Gioma starts to hurry out. Leon suddenly calls him back. The fake protagonist asks Gioma where he came from. Gioma pauses and takes a moment to process the strange question. He has heard something similar before, but Leon asking it feels completely different. Leon also looks extremely serious while asking, and Gioma cannot tell what he is thinking. He could have asked during the introductions, but Leon deliberately waited until everyone else had left. After noticing Gioma's long silence, Leon apologizes for asking such a strange question out of nowhere. He says he cannot shake the feeling that Gioma is like him. It is true that Korean is this world's official language because of where the game was made. That does not mean other cultures do not exist. Anyone could tell at a glance that Gioma is Korean. Leon asks where he is from, because he thinks the two of them are similar. Gioma stays silent, struggling to understand the bizarre conversation. Leon finally tells him to pretend he never heard anything, then stands up to leave the cafe. Gioma stops him and throws the question back. He asks Leon where he came from. It is an instinctive reaction, and Gioma regrets it immediately, but he knows he will not sleep tonight without an answer. Leon calmly takes Gioma's hand and tells him that he is from Germany. Without another word, he leaves. Gioma can only wonder what just happened to Leon. When Leon first asked the question, Gioma wondered whether the game's protagonist might have come from another world too. It is strange to consider, but it is a very real possibility. There is no rule saying only one person can be dragged into this video game world. In fact, possessing the main character is more likely than possessing an extra. Gioma looks at the table knife, and an idea comes to him. When the Blade God's blessing activates, his senses become strangely heightened. Maybe activating it will give him some answers. He picks up the knife and removes the cover. Just as he hoped, a message appears in his mind confirming that Leon really is from another world. The voice is similar to the one he heard while fighting Chloe after activating the Blade God's blessing. He can hear it faintly. Thinking about it gives him a migraine that is even worse than the pain from painlessness. Regardless, the Leon he met today is definitely the same Leon he played with in the game. No actor could reproduce Leon so perfectly. It is strange that Leon suddenly asked what country he came from. Claiming that the two of them are similar is even more unsettling. Gioma checks the game's wiki, but there is no information about Leon's background in this world. Things are getting weird, so Gioma decides this will be the last time he interacts with Leon. If this ever happens again, he will go straight to Medea. He will ignore every attempt she makes to run away with him. Gioma is also surprised by how calm he has managed to stay despite the situations appearing around him. Maybe that is another effect of his blessings. He checks his status screen. As usual, he seems to be making steady progress. His mental stability and armament levels are unchanged, but his physical stability has increased thanks to his training. His armament will probably increase when he gets Murasame from the midterm exam. The only thing he is unsure about is his assimilation rate. It has risen a lot and seems close to unlocking something special. Maybe it is connected to everything he has done so far. It is still frustrating that he has no idea what it is, and he cannot exactly ask someone else. At the bottom of the status screen, there is something new. Painlessness has increased by 10 seconds, which means Gioma can now use it for 40 seconds. After all this time, his efforts finally seem to be paying off. As the days pass, the groups keep meeting to discuss their battle strategy for the exam. Gioma continues training and refining his skills until test day finally arrives. All the groups stand in front of the subspace gate. Gioma can tell that it has a completely different atmosphere from the subspace at the training grounds. The rest of his team arrives too, and they look just as excited as he is. During their previous meetings, they decided what role each member would take. Rachel will lead from the front as their main damage dealer. Leon takes the central role as leader and keeps everyone together. Speedarm will stay behind Leon as support, while Chloe works alongside Rachel as a secondary damage dealer. Finally, Gioma will take responsibility behind everyone else, forming a balanced team. Gioma takes a second to inspect their equipment and consider how powerful it is. Rachel has an S-rank weapon called the Vermilion Phoenix Halberd. Leon does not have bowman yet, but he still carries a powerful sword. Finally, Speedarm's equipment is a recorder. Gioma did not know support equipment also provided musical entertainment. Rachel assures him that the recorder is one of the few S-rank weapons capable of healing. Even Gioma knows that obtaining an S-rank healing weapon is absurdly lucky. Having that kind of equipment is incredible, so he leans in to inspect it. Speedarm becomes noticeably flustered. A sudden announcement over the intercom interrupts their conversation. The first-year midterm exams are about to begin. Lee Wanbin, the Wolf class teacher, comes over to speak with the students. They already understand the rules, so he keeps the discussion brief. He tells them not to be ashamed to run when things get dangerous. There is no reason to risk their lives for extra credit. If they are injured or want to surrender, they can simply contact the instructor in charge. The exam is officially about to begin. Lee Wanbin tells them to do their best and try not to get nervous. Chloe looks worried and asks Gioma what is wrong. She remembers that mermaids can appear on the island. Gioma assures her again that the instructors already confirmed everything is clear. Chloe tries to trust his word, but she cannot stop feeling nervous. Back in Sicily, where she grew up, mermaids were often mentioned as creatures known for causing massive damage. Humans have a truce with the demonic races now, so mermaids are rarely seen outside dungeons. The rumors have continued because the truce has not fully confirmed whether mermaids can appear on the island. Gioma rests one hand on Chloe's head and calms her. Meanwhile, the instructors direct every student through the gate. Chloe smiles and decides to put her trust in Gioma. Much later, she hears Gioma calling her through the fog in her mind. It seems she lost focus for a moment, because now everything has turned upside down. When Chloe opens her eyes, she sees Gioma and the others standing in front of something huge and powerful. Rachel asks Speedarm whether he can contact the instructor in charge. They are inside a cave, and his phone has no signal. Someone lies bleeding on the ground and is clearly in danger. And standing in front of them is the main reason for this sudden chaos, a mermaid. Let us go back a little. Before the group found itself in this terrible situation, the group finally arrives safely on Skapuli Island. Their first major problem is motion sickness from passing through the gate. The only person who seems fine is Gioma, who tells them he does not get motion sickness. Not long after, they have their first encounter with a mermaid. It stares at them in surprise for a moment, then runs away. As disgusting as the creatures look, this one is much smaller than Gioma expected. Leon confirms that the one they saw is too young to give them any points. To find an adult mermaid, the group needs to head to their assigned location. Chloe moves ahead to scout, while the group follows at a slower pace. Eventually, they reach their area, and Chloe returns from scouting to report what she found. She tells them there is a cave about 500 meters ahead and leads them toward it. Before they even enter the dark, ominous cave, dozens of eyes are already staring at them. Leon estimates that there are around 50 or 60 mermaids inside, all gathered around a campfire. Defeating that many mermaids would guarantee them first place in the midterms. The group has to put their safety first. Entering the cave will cut off their internet access and make it difficult to contact the instructor. It is a high-risk, high-reward decision, and everything depends on their leader, Leon. Before reaching the island, he paid close attention to the role each team member would play. Now it is time for him to lead them to victory again. Leon makes his decision in an instant and sends Rachel in to begin the attack. Rachel leans back and launches a golden spear into the cave. The spear lands directly on the campfire, extinguishing it and shocking every mermaid. Before they can turn around to find its source, Rachel is already above them. Several mermaid heads go flying in the first second. Speedarm follows and focuses his power on boosting Rachel. The enhancement helps her eliminate the mermaids one by one. Gioma cannot help shouting in awe at how strong Rachel is. Chloe notices. She draws her yandere katana and activates her blessing to join the hunt. She rushes forward, determined to catch Rachel's score. Both fighters kill more mermaids while charging toward each other. They do not slow down even as they get closer and closer. Gioma starts worrying that neither of them intends to stop. They come within inches of each other before finally turning and taking out the last mermaid rushing between them. Then they separate and continue eliminating the others, while Gioma breathes a sigh of relief. In the end, he was worried about them for nothing. Through their combined efforts, all 60 mermaids are killed. It looks like they are finished here, so Leon suggests moving somewhere else to continue the exam. That kind of determination and leadership is what makes the blonde protagonist the heart of the group. It also proves to Gioma that Leon is the real protagonist of the game. Nobody else could reproduce those heroic qualities. As Gioma's thoughts wander, he looks away from Leon for one moment. When he looks back, he sees the blonde hero collapse after taking a fatal strike to the stomach. The others stare in shock as something powerful rises from the pile of dead mermaids behind Gioma. It is the demonic mermaid. The monster Chloe feared might suddenly appear on the island. Gioma had a feeling things were going too smoothly. Now the question is whether they should run or stand and fight. There is no way to know whether they can reach safety while caring for an injured Leon. Rachel orders Speedarm to contact the instructors and report the mermaid's appearance. But just as Gioma feared, the cave blocks their internet access, and there is no way to contact the instructors. Everyone panics, and Gioma seems to be the only person who is not losing his head. With Leon bleeding out, only one person can take control of the situation. Gioma steps forward and starts giving orders to his teammates. He tells Rachel to keep the mermaid away from them no matter what. Then he orders Speedarm to use as many healing blessings as possible on Leon. Gioma finally calls Chloe after she clears her assigned area. He orders her to evacuate the students and alert the instructors. It takes Chloe a moment to process his words, but she finally turns and does what he says. Now that everyone has the proper instructions, Gioma moves toward the mermaid, shocking the others. He tells Rachel and Speedarm that he will handle the creature. As for the mermaid, slicing small fish has always been his specialty. It is only fair that he takes this one. Demons can use a unique power similar to human blessings. It is called magic, and this creature's magic was powerful enough to defeat the protagonist with one strike. That is the difference in power between humans and demons. Gioma has the blade god's blessing, but that does not guarantee he will survive this battle. Even in the original game, defeating a demon using magic was impossible without a full party. And yet, Gioma is about to challenge a boss that normally requires a large-scale raid by himself. In other words, he is in way over his head. There is no way for him to back down now. Chloe should need around 10 minutes to find help and return. Gioma has only 40 seconds to take down this oversized fish before he meets a fate worse than the protagonists. Rachel struggles to keep the mermaid away, while Speedarm focuses all his power on healing Leon. The wound is deep, but it is healing regardless. Despite the difficult task in front of him, Speedarm cannot help focusing on Gioma. Just looking at the mermaid makes his bones tremble. Gioma still wants to fight it alone. The demon attacks first, firing the same laser that took Leon down. Gioma dodges the attack and rushes forward with his knife to close the distance. The mermaid mainly uses long-range attacks with water-based magic. Gioma does not know much about magic. He knows this demon is still just a fish made of flesh and bone. All he has to do is get close and cut it. He leaps toward the demon and slashes, but it dodges out of the way and heads toward Speedarm instead. Before it can reach him, Gioma arrives and cuts one of the monster's fins, making it scream in pain. The cut is too shallow. Gioma prepares another attack, but the mermaid quickly dodges and melts into the water. Since the mermaid chased Speedarm, it seems to be deliberately targeting the injured member. Leon is mostly healed now, so Speedarm turns his attention back to Gioma. Gioma appears fine, and Speedarm takes a moment to check on him before rushing back into the fight. In Speedarm's eyes, Gioma is truly amazing. During one of their many meetings, Speedarm talked about admiring heroes who sacrifice themselves for others. Since entering the academy, he had never met anyone who lived up to that title. That was why he joined Rachel's group, hoping to find the hero he was looking for in Leon. He even told Gioma honestly that he did not consider himself a hero. Yet now, in this insane situation, the person stepping forward and risking his life is Gioma. The mermaid continues attacking, firing fish-shaped magic blasts that Gioma skillfully dodges. This time though, the blasts do not simply fly past him, they turn around and follow. The mermaid can control the attacks and chase Gioma around the cave. While Gioma is distracted, the demon tries to attack Speedarm again. Gioma reaches him in time to cut the creature before it can launch the attack. The wound is shallow again. Small cuts will not bring it down. If Gioma wants to kill this demon once and for all, he will need to stab as deeply as possible. The mermaid fires another blast at Gioma, but this time he manages to dodge. The attack tears through the top of the cave and fires into the sky. It is so powerful that the cadets around the mountain can see it and hear the loud roar that follows. On top of that, the sky has also started. The rain starts coming down, so the instructor suggests moving the wounded before it gets worse. Back in the cave, the mermaids retreat, giving the students a brief chance to breathe. The one buried under the rubble suddenly blasts through the rocks and charges again. Gioma had been holding back because Leon was injured, but now he orders Rachel to protect Speedarm and Leon. Speedarm still cannot believe Gioma is taking on a demon alone. He wonders if he is watching a legend being born. Gioma has only 10 seconds of painlessness left, so he has to make every second count. Meanwhile, Chloe races through the forest for help, ignoring her pain because Gioma is fighting for all of them. She knows he hates fighting, and only draws his blade when there is no other choice. An explosion tears through the cave behind her, and she nearly falls over a vine before forcing herself onward. When she senses someone ahead, Chloe assumes it is another mermaid and attacks first. The stranger blocks her sword, revealing himself as Abel instead. The moment Chloe realizes she found help, she collapses and weakly tells them to save Gioma. Inside the cave, Speedarm can barely process what he is seeing. Gioma handles the mermaid like a chef, calmly slicing a live fish on a cutting board. Even Rachel, who grew up surrounded by powerful warriors, has never seen skill like this. She shoves Speedarm away when a stray attack comes for them. She reminds him that Gioma is still fighting a magic-using demon. A blade against magic is a terrible matchup, and one mistake could end the fight. As if summoned by that thought, the mermaid raises both hands and unleashes a spell called Needle Scream. The rain crystallizes in midair, freezes, and then crashes down as a storm of razor-sharp droplets. Gioma dodges some and deflects the rest, but the pressure begins breaking his sashimi knife apart. He throws the failing blade, slicing through the mermaid's side, then follows with a powerful finishing cut. The mermaid dodges and uses her own body as a distraction before launching a massive attack from point-blank range. There is no time to evade, and Gioma's mind suddenly slips into a blank space. A red line appears in the emptiness, showing him exactly where he needs to cut. Instead of dodging, he resets his grip and slices through the magic itself. The cut detonates into a massive shockwave, and when the smoke clears, Gioma is standing over the mermaid's dead body. He kicks the dying demon back into the pool, then drops to his knees, coughing blood. Rachel rushes to him while Speedarm checks on Leon, who is somehow fine. Then Abel and her team arrive, carrying an unconscious, injured Chloe. Abel bristles at seeing Rachel cradling Gioma, but there is no time for jealousy. Chloe and Gioma need treatment, and the academy will not arrive for another hour. Speedarm explains how Gioma defeated the mermaid alone, though he doubts the instructors will believe them. Abel can hardly accept it either, especially after everything she has done to live up to her heroic bloodline. The healer begins treating Gioma, who is torn up but still alive after killing a full demon by himself. Speedarm suggests that they keep the exact details quiet because the academy supposedly searched this island first. Leon asks whether someone from the demon factions could be inside the academy. He immediately tries to take the question back. Still, none of them can completely rule out the possibility. The island is not easy for students to miss, and without Gioma, Leon's group would have been torn apart. The 700-year truce has seen plenty of conflicts, but demons have never attacked academy students like this. The treaty even says such an attack would justify a war. Speedarm warns everyone not to leap to conclusions, but they still need to keep their stories consistent. If news spreads that Gioma killed a demon alone, he could become the spy's next target. Abel dislikes hiding the truth, so she suggests speaking with her grandfather first. The students return to school, and Gioma wakes in the hospital beneath the bright morning sun. He remembers the mermaid launching a magical sphere just before dying, and his knife cutting the red line through it. When Gioma checks his blessing, his mental stability has increased by 1. His absorption has also reached the point where a hidden trait will unlock at 15%. That strange lock may be what let him see the red line in the mermaid's magic. The door opens, and Medea immediately wraps him in a crushing hug. After finally letting him breathe, she pulls his reward from a dimensional pocket, the B-rank sword Murasame. It is exactly the kind of weapon Gioma wanted. He cannot understand why she is giving it to him early. Siegfried then steps into the room and bows with Medea, apologizing for the academy's negligence. They thank Gioma for saving the students and ask him to keep the incident quiet. Medea is certain the mastermind is somewhere inside the academy, so exposing the truth could put everyone at risk. After the two leave, Medea and Siegfried discuss how the academy is already 700 years old. They have known each other for only 60. Scapuli Island was known for mermaid sightings, which is why they had ordered several preliminary surveys before the exam. Medea's aura cracks the surrounding windows when she realizes such a disaster happened under her watch. Then her guilt turns into excited fangirling over Gioma defeating a mermaid alone. She asks Siegfried if that makes Gioma a genius. Siegfried has seen countless so-called geniuses burn out, but Gioma's talent may actually deserve the word. He wonders how far the boy can go, and tells Medea to remain at the academy for now. Gioma is discharged and returns to class, where the mermaid incident remains a secret. His first stop is the school forge. Murasame is currently little more than a metal rod against the sword god's blessing. Valander is the only blacksmith who might be able to reforge it. Chloe calls Gioma's name as he leaves and approaches on crutches with her leg still in a cast. Speedarm's emergency healing worked well enough that the doctor expects her to walk without crutches within a week. Even Gioma admits the group survived because Chloe brought help, Rachel cleared the mermaids, and Speedarm healed them. Leon is the only one who did not contribute much. That makes Gioma wonder whether someone like that can really defeat the Demon King. Their conversation ends when the teacher storms in with a major announcement. The teacher tells everyone to sit down because someone new will be joining their training. The class complains until Siegfried quietly walks through the door. Even Gioma is stunned that humanity's strongest warrior has joined Wolf class. Elsewhere, a pink-haired woman slams an old man against a wall and demands an explanation. She is Trainer Kim, the 5th Demon Commander, and she is furious that his plan failed. The plan was supposed to send Leon back from the midterms half dead. A first year could never defeat a mermaid alone. Because the old man failed, Leon is now safe inside the academy. Trainer Kim learns that one student actually killed the mermaid, Gioma Kang, the special entrant. The demon commander recognizes a new target and decides Gioma will be her prey. Wolf class resumes its daily running, with Chloe resting in her cast while Gioma struggles beside the others. Siegfried runs at his shoulder and keeps pushing him faster. The Sword Emperor should be nowhere near first-year training. In the original story, Siegfried later inherits the Sword Saint title. He becomes Leon's swordsmanship master during the Second Demon War. But the plot has already veered off course, and Leon may never receive that title at all. The possibility is especially irritating to Gioma, while his classmates glare at him for receiving so much attention. Siegfried uses the run to teach him that every warrior begins with physical strength and endurance. Talent means nothing if the body cannot support it. After the lapse, the class begins field training with one strict rule: personal weapons are forbidden. Everyone must choose a weapon from the school's battered collection and learn its fundamentals. Siegfried throws the pile onto the ground, and Gioma immediately notices a familiar sashimi knife among the junk. The students ask why their heirloom weapons are forbidden. Siegfried explains that powerful equipment makes warriors neglect their own training. A master can never blame his equipment for failure. Those words hit Gioma directly, and he picks up the sashimi knife without hesitation. The students pair off for practice, while Li Wanbin trembles at the idea of facing the Sword Emperor. Siegfried ignores him and calls Gioma forward instead. He carries a rusty beginner's weapon, but in his hands even scrap looks sharp. Gioma asks if his bones have healed. He tries to back out by saying he is nothing compared with the Sword Emperor. His classmates mock him, while Siegfried accuses him of hiding extraordinary talent behind cowardice. Gioma's pride was carved into him when he earned the title of the greatest swordsman in his old country. Li Wanbin rushes to stop the match, but Siegfried holds him back. Gioma finally draws the sashimi knife and accepts the challenge. Even at 70, Siegfried can recognize the sword enlightenment in the boy's stance. He remembers a one-armed wandering knight who once showed him a higher realm of swordsmanship. Now Kang Gioma might be the person who leads him there. Gioma attacks first, and Siegfried meets him with a clean parry. The two blades collide again and again as Gioma dodges, turns, and drives the Sword Emperor backward. The students cannot understand what they are seeing. They know Siegfried is paying far too much attention to a special entrant. All they can do is hope this strange spar does not become another disaster. After watching them for several minutes, the students realize the two swordsmen are not standing still at all. They have reached a level the Wolf-class instructor once thought impossible. Siegfried warned Medea that if the principal learned about the match, the situation could get out of control. He promised he would not cross real swords with Gioma. The older man already knew Gioma could enter the mental world. If the boy could survive a battle there against Siegfried, his talent was far beyond what anyone had credited. The mental world is a fierce battle of intent, and Siegfried can tell Gioma is growing at an astonishing rate. So the Sword Emperor raises the stakes and activates a powerful blessing called Sword Spirit Protection. Even outside the mental world, the students feel the pressure pouring from both fighters. Blue light pours from Siegfried's sword like a massive aura. The clash becomes so intense that both fighters snap back into reality. Things are about to turn bloody when Gioma and Siegfried charge at each other again. Before their blades meet, Medea arrives with a furious shout that cracks the ground beneath them. The fight ends with Siegfried dragged to her office for a proper scolding. Siegfried apologizes, but Medea is still furious. He fought a student after struggling so hard to become a teacher. He lost control and released his aura. She would have punished him even more if the media had not arrived. Siegfried turns to Medea. He apologizes again, something she has never heard him do in their 50 years of knowing each other. She demands to know why he unleashed sword spirit protection on a student. Siegfried admits that without it, he would not have gained the upper hand against Gioma. Medea freezes because Siegfried is admitting that a 17-year-old forced him to use everything available. He then reveals that Gioma has already reached the mental world, something Siegfried himself could not master until around 30. Medea remembers the fear she felt when she ran toward Gioma after stopping the fight. It was the same strange fear she once felt when meeting the 6th demon commander, Voss. She asks Siegfried directly whether he lost. The usually calm Sword Emperor explodes, insisting that natural talent does not put Gioma anywhere near his level. He even claims he was not fully armed, giving Medea the perfect chance to accuse him of blaming his equipment. When he tries to activate sword spirit protection again, her slap knocks the idea out of him. Elsewhere, Gioma wakes from a dream of the duel and thinks about how reckless the Sword Emperor is. The mental world appears only when someone fully understands a weapon, and only peak masters can enter it freely. In the game, fewer than 10 heroes could use it. Leon needed 3 years of special training before reaching it. Gioma entered immediately, because he had used a sashimi knife for more than 20 years across both lives. Every activation of Sword God's blessing also pushes his focus beyond normal perception. Instead of avoiding every problem, he decides to face what he can and solve it step by step. He stands, draws the sashimi knife, and concentrates until the mental world opens again. The space shatters when a huge hand reaches through the emptiness and touches his shoulder with one finger. The aura overwhelms the knife, and the weapon falls apart in his grip. Meanwhile, several Academy elders argue in a dim room. The old man tied to the demon commander insists Gioma may be the real hero candidate, not Leon. The others point out that Leon is the official candidate. The elder argues that Leon still cannot use his blessing properly. Gioma, on the other hand, displayed impossible ability by defeating the genius twins during placement. Medea is also hiding information about him under the excuse of protecting a student. The elders decide they need a public enemy to restore their influence. They agree that the hero threatening the Demon King must be eliminated. They finally approve an investigation into Gioma and prepare to issue orders to the auditory family. While the elders make their decision, Gioma stares at the blacksmith he trusted with Murasame. Volander backs away in fear because the B-rank sword has somehow become an E-rank sashimi knife. During 30 years of forging weapons, he has never seen metal reject the forge like that. The sword seemed to refuse being reforged, so Volander melted it down and barely shaped it into a blade. Even Gioma's 20 years of knife experience cannot deny the craftsmanship, but the weapon's durability is still only E rank. It could become useful if reinforced, though the material needed comes from an A rank or stronger demon. That would mean hunting something as dangerous as another mermaid just to improve his equipment. Gioma demands a guarantee, then argues that Volander owes him half the value of the ruined metal. The negotiation drops from an absurd amount to 500, then rises to 1,000 when Gioma refuses to budge. Volander finally accepts, more afraid of Gioma's stare than of the lost money. Gioma takes the reforged weapon to a quiet campus bench and checks his blessing. His armament has increased, and the new weapon unlocks another option for reducing the pain of Sword God's blessing. The pain is still unbearable, but it has changed from feeling near death to barely being able to breathe. If one level makes that much difference, continued growth might eventually let him use the blessing without suffering. Since stronger weapons raise his armament, finding reinforcement materials becomes his top priority after the midterms. Chloe approaches on crutches and notices the rice stuck to Gioma's face. She reaches over to wipe it away, then collapses in happiness from the brief contact. Murasame is his first weapon that does not resemble a kitchen tool. Unfortunately, its pathetic E-rank status still annoys him. Chloe misreads his thoughtful expression as disappointment in the blacksmith, and instantly decides Valander should die. Gioma talks her out of it, then notices someone watching from a nearby tree. He kicks the trunk, sending Nox Auditore tumbling out of the branches. Chloe worries about her brother's sudden appearance, but Gioma smells no blood and sees no weapon. Nox warns him that the Academy elders ordered the Auditore family to dispose of him. Chloe confronts Nox, but he says she has lost her edge after staying away from home so long. She ignores him and tells Gioma to stand behind her so she can protect him. Nox continues, explaining that the family delayed the order. The elders secretly bypassed Medea and placed unusual attention on Gioma. If the pressure continues, the Auditor family will have no choice but to investigate him. Nox came under the excuse of family principles, but his real concern is clearly Chloe. Before leaving, he asks Gioma to make sure Chloe is never hurt again. Gioma agrees. Then Nox asks how he became so strong. Gioma answers that Nox lacks desperation and needs experience outside the academy before he reaches his limit. It is the most convincing advice he can give without revealing anything important, so he leaves before Nox asks more. In class, Gioma studies the Academy elders and remembers that they descend from 5 of Joaquin's 7 disciples. In the game, players called them the Corrupt Remnants because they constantly obstructed the hero to protect their power. But why would they suddenly target Gioma instead of Leon? The mermaid is the obvious answer. She was hunting Leon. Gioma killed her and became impossible for the upper nobles to ignore. If those elders also targeted Leon, then one of them, or all of them, could be cooperating with demons. They did not merely obstruct the hero, they tried to kill him. The entire scheme exists to preserve the elders' control over humanity and the academy. Gioma could break into their rooms and cut them all down, but the time for that has not come yet. The new information strengthens his decision to enter a dungeon and collect weapon reinforcement materials. First, he needs a party, because even Gioma cannot do this efficiently alone. Chloe would gladly help, but he needs someone more strategic than Rachel's reckless strength. Speedarm is the first person who comes to mind, so Gioma visits Dragon class after school. A third-year brute confronts Gioma for being a special entrant. The bully immediately pulls back his fist and starts a fight. The punch looks painfully slow, but before Gioma can answer, Speedarm drives his own fist into the bully's jaw. Speedarm shakes his hand after hitting such a hard face, then asks if Gioma came looking for him. Gioma explains that he needs help recruiting members for a dungeon party. In exchange for splitting the obvious rewards, he wants to keep the materials dropped by the demons. Speedarm thinks Gioma could clear 5 or 6 dungeons alone if academy rules did not limit him. Gioma admits he could not even clear one without dying from his blessing's backlash. Speedarm mistakes the answer for humility. Chloe and Speedarm give them 3 members, leaving one final spot. Rachel is isolated after the midterms, while Leon is preparing high-level raids with older students, so neither is available. Speedarm says he knows the perfect person, though they are probably asleep even in the middle of the day. That evening, the 2 lead Gioma to a Japanese-style house hidden inside academy grounds. They find their candidate sleeping soundly in the back courtyard. Speedarm whispers that he brought her something, and the mystery instantly wakes her. The girl suddenly launches herself straight at Gioma. She steals the bag and lands on his chest. Meanwhile, she keeps eating the candy inside. Her name is Ryo Saki, and she immediately asks whether he brought more Yang Jang, a Korean bean paste candy. Gioma remembers spending his old life working, playing Miracle Blessing M, and feeding his gacha addiction from a porcelain throne. Abel von Nibelung was the game's official main heroine. Ryo was one of the first 5-star heroines to fade from the story. Despite her lazy attitude and barely any plot relevance, Ryo is a top-tier ranged damage dealer. Recruiting her should help Gioma without disturbing the main storyline. Speedarm explains that they want to raid the C-rank Buffalo dungeon in Cowan within a week. Ryo asks whether Gioma is the same student who fought the upperclassmen in subspace training. She is not convinced by his sleepy, unmotivated attitude, so Gioma stops arguing and calls Speedarm away. Then he draws a hidden knife and throws it at an archery target without looking. The blade hits dead center, and a second knife strikes the first handle perfectly. Gioma asks Ryo if she is interested now. The next day, she is the first person waiting in the team's meeting room. Speedarm explains the Buffalo Dungeon's main threat. Its C-rank water buffalo demons charge from range before fighting up close. They are weak against ranged attacks, making the dungeon straightforward except for one rule. No one may open the sealed stone gate at the center. Gioma agrees far too quickly, and lies that he has no idea what is behind it. In reality, he knows a hidden boss is sealed beyond the gate. The system will not allow it to open yet. Ryo keeps eating candy while Chloe watches every girl who looks at Gioma like a murder suspect. Later that day, the team leaves for Gamyodo Chirawan, the city where the dungeon is located. Gioma once swore he would never return there, but now he is willingly leading a party back. The bus stops at a checkpoint, where armed guards approach the driver. The guards confirm that Gioma's party belongs to Halen Academy before letting them enter the dungeon zone. Gioma feels watched by the elders and suspects something ugly may come from this trip. Speedarm interrupts his thoughts by offering him an egg. Gioma instead asks whether anyone fears this simple C-rank dungeon. Rio refuses the egg without looking away from the window. For a moment, Gioma feels her watching him too, adding one more pair of eyes to the elders' surveillance. The bus reaches an old demon nesting site that has been converted into a basic farming dungeon. Speedarm notices Gioma's heavy luggage and discovers that it is nothing but a bag full of kitchen knives. Chloe takes point as usual, and the 4 students sign the visitor log before entering. One guard watches Gioma write his name with unusual interest. Speedarm calls everyone inside before he can ask questions. The dungeon walls are covered with student signatures and cute drawings. This makes the place look more like a tourist attraction than a death trap. Rio grabs Gioma's arm and asks for something sweet. The candy is not Yangjung, so she saves it for later. Chloe suddenly detects monsters attacking from 200 meters away. Speedarm organizes the formation. Chloe draws her twin bows, and Rio finally pulls out her S-rank crimson bow. With that weapon, clearing the dungeon should be easy, assuming Rio can stop eating long enough to fight. The monsters charge through the cave, and Chloe leaps forward to put arrows through 2 of their eyes. The remaining beasts rush past the fallen one, but Rio fires 3 arrows. She kills them before they can reach Chloe. Gioma admires her damage output while worrying that she is destroying the horns he needs for Murasame's reinforcement. One half-dead buffalo suddenly attacks Rio, who trips over a rock and falls into a defensive position. Gioma catches her before the monster can reach her and cuts it down. Rio stares at him in shock, then spins into a tiny burst of excitement while still balanced in his arms. Outside the dungeon, the suspicious guard answers a call from an unknown person, confirming that a plan is already underway. Gioma collects the buffalo horns, and Rio hands him a piece of Yangjang as thanks for saving her. Chloe's murderous aura behind him makes the gift feel much less innocent. Speedarm asks whether Gioma and Chloe are dating because they seem so close. Chloe blushes at the idea. Gioma smoothly explains that not every relationship between a man and a woman is romantic. Chloe glares at him, then changes the subject by asking why the dungeon has so few monsters. Rio agrees that the buffalo seem to be running from something. That is not normal for docile creatures locals use for farming. Speedarm explains that Rio ranked first in written exams while he ranked second, which is how they met. He also reveals that Rachel is his distant cousin through the Changong family, explaining why their loud personalities seem hereditary. Speedarm tells Gioma he could join the 7 heroes, and Chloe agrees. Rio suddenly walks ahead and announces that she hates the 7 heroes. They need 20 kills for a clear. The group continues while Gioma studies strange cursed claw marks on the walls. Outside, the guard reports that the buffalo should already be berserk. He admits following every instruction from the unknown caller. The caller threatens the guard over the phone. Terrified, the guard enters the dungeon after forcing open the sealed gate. The group is still moving deeper when Chloe warns them that nearly 50 monsters are charging from behind. The ground shakes as the buffalo stampede through the dungeon. Gioma remembers his teacher saying every blade has a purpose. A sashimi knife is meant for fish, not a bull. Then he remembers beef sashimi and realizes the same knife can cut a buffalo. He orders Chloe to disrupt the herd without attacking. He tells Speedarm to prepare, and Rio to guard the front. Rio tells Speedarm not to be surprised by what comes next. Gioma opens his bag and turns his army of sashimi knives toward the stampede. Within minutes, 50 buffalo have become enormous piles of meat. Chloe distracts the herd with her cat blessing, while Gioma throws knives through the openings she creates. The last buffalo pile collapses, and Gioma calmly starts collecting every horn for later. With painlessness now lasting 40 seconds, clearing the herd was almost easy. Speedarm admits that even he is speechless. Rio stares at Gioma as if she is seeing a new species. Standing over the mountain of bodies, the team wonders what kind of monster Gioma really is. The dungeon only requires 20 buffalo kills, and Gioma has somehow cleared that requirement twice by himself. He tries to claim he did nothing during the midterms. Speedarm almost mentions the mermaid before remembering that secret is not public. The conversation dies when Chloe notices how unnaturally quiet the area has become. They reach a stone structure that appears to be the one gate the academy forbade them from opening. As they stare at it, the chains suddenly snap, and the gate begins to rise. Elsewhere, the former dungeon worker stares at the bodies in shock and thinks about his $20 billion gambling debt. A woman claiming to be an instructor promises to erase his debt. He must use a demon stone and enrage the buffalo. She also ordered him to open the deep stone gate after Gioma's party arrived. He hesitated at first because the plan sacrificed students, but the promise of freedom from his debt was too tempting. With the gate open, he is certain the children cannot survive. Gioma's party walks through the stone doors and immediately realizes they have entered a trap. The gate only opens when a massive demon stone is brought into the dungeon. Gioma recognizes it as a major mid-game item. If this follows the game's story, clearing the area will provide an enormous reward, but survival comes first. A second stone gate has a single red line carved into it, supposedly an unbreakable seal. Gioma already spent all 40 seconds of painlessness against the stampede. Now Murasame must survive long enough to cut through the seal. Before he can try, a huge presence makes every student turn around. Torches ignite by themselves, revealing an A-rank demon known as Minotaros, or the Buffalo King. Two massive buffalo stand beside it, both stronger than anything the party has faced so far. Even if Gioma breaks the gate, the Buffalo King will make escape impossible once it wakes. This is different from the mermaid because he has fought minotaurs before, but he has already exhausted his blessing. At full strength, he could kill 3 of them alone. Now he needs a strategy. Gioma asks Speedarm to maintain a pain reduction buff for 2 minutes without stopping once. If the music breaks even for a moment, Gioma will be finished. He leaves the smaller buffalo to Rio and Chloe, and takes the king for himself. The plan begins when the Buffalo King wakes with a roar. Gioma activates Sword God's blessing and immediately coughs blood from the pain. Speedarm's buff lets him move, so Gioma dodges the first swing and attacks from the side. The pain remains strong enough to make him vomit blood, but he can finally fight the monster head-on. The Buffalo King kicks him across the room, and Gioma catches himself before spitting more blood. Without painlessness, sensations he had forgotten return in full force, yet that agony also makes the blessing feel strangely liberating. He launches another attack, moving at a speed the rest of the team can barely understand. When the king brings its axe down, Gioma is standing safely on the blade after the smoke clears. Rio can barely focus on the fight, because she is also handling one of the guards. Rio understands combat balance, muscle control, and kinetic energy, but Gioma turns those basic principles into something almost impossible. An arrow hits the guard directly in one eye. The enraged monster charges Rio, and she blasts its head apart. The rumor about a special entrant able to stand against Siegfried's aura suddenly makes sense. The Buffalo King roars and swings again, but Gioma cuts through the arm it uses to punch him. Chloe finishes her own buffalo, and realizes the more human a demon looks, the more dangerous it usually is. The one before Gioma is strong enough to burn its own life force into mana. Magic floods the chamber, making it nearly impossible to approach. Speedarm keeps playing at full strength, still believing Gioma can pull off another miracle. The king fuses the axe into its remaining arm and brings it down on the bleeding swordsman. Gioma desperately blocks the incoming attack with Murasame. The strike is too dense to cut and too dangerous to dodge with allies behind him. He begins to give ground until Rio fires an arrow straight into the monster's eyes. Gioma closes his eyes for 1 second, then opens them with a new resolve. Murasame glows blue, carrying the same aura Siegfried released during their spar. Gioma pushes through the axe and cuts the Buffalo King cleanly in two. The horrifying demon falls as 2 huge pieces of meat, and the team can only stare. Gioma looks up at the ceiling while his nerves finally settle. His absorption rises from 9.3 to 12.7. Speedarm collapses with bruised lips from playing the flute for so long. The blue light from Gioma's sword is bright enough to illuminate the entire cave. At this age, he is already producing an aura, making it difficult for Rio to believe he is even human. She reminds him to breathe and explains that she finally understands why Speedarm follows him. Rio asks whether academy rules prevent Gioma from transferring into their class. They might, but nothing stops a student from transferring in the opposite direction. Rio smiles, realizing she wants to accompany him too. Gioma struggles to breathe as the adrenaline leaves his body. Even Speedarm's blessing cannot erase the pressure on his wounds. Fighting without painlessness is still progress, but Chloe crashes into him and frantically asks if he is alright. He tries to calm her while warning that her weight is pressing on injuries that are already serious. A new status window appears and reveals that Gioma has gained another blessing. It was originally meant for Leon, and its soul rank makes it one of the rarest blessings in the world. Transfer only reveals its full potential when paired with another blessing. This allows the user to move an owned blessing into a living target through direct physical contact. It is essential for controlling Bojang's dual nature, the sword Leon will eventually obtain. Since Gioma possesses it instead, he can benefit from it far earlier than the original hero. Then he notices someone watching through the stone doors that are now open. Gioma asks Chloe if she remembers the favor he requested earlier. She hits the man before he can escape and pins his thigh with a knife. Speedarm and Rio have no idea what is happening. Gioma explains that Chloe was assigned to handle the suspicious worker. The worker pretends to be innocent, but the team quickly realizes he caused the stampede and opened the gate. There were no surveillance cameras inside the dungeon, yet he appeared at exactly the right moment to monitor them. Rio and Gioma threaten his life until he admits that an academy instructor approached him days earlier. She offered to settle his gambling debt in exchange for driving the students out of the dungeon. The instructor was a tall, purple-haired woman with sharp eyes, likely Rio's assistant instructor. Speedarm suspects she may also be behind the midterm incident. Rio asks what happened, and Gioma finally reveals that they fought a demon mermaid during the exam. Speedarm realizes Leon was hospitalized because he fought a demon. Gioma admits that he was the one who defeated it alone. While they argue, Gioma stops the recording on his phone. The worker has already given him everything useful. Chloe pulls the knife from the man's thigh. Gioma tells her to handle the trash while he leaves. Her eyes shift into yandere mode, and the worker's scream lasts only a second.